Okay, troublemakers, how are we doing? It's been a while, I know, I'm back. Can you tell me if my sound is okay? Because I need to check if it's, How you doing, Colin? Good night. Colin, is Kelvin around, or is he paddling already? A little bit low. Let me turn it. Let me know if that's any better, Sam. Sammy, let me know if that's any better. I turned it up a tiny bit. Colin, you're at the gym. I gymmed Colin, you'll be pleased to hear I did legs in the gym yesterday. Much needed after sitting in the car for 3 weeks. Or 2 weeks. God, we have a lot to catch up on, team. I'm trying to work out what I'm supposed to be doing. This is good. Okay, so the trip was pretty good. It was really good. Shomez, thank you. It was 1 week in Hawaii, 2 weeks in West Coast US. Jocks, welcome in. Got back yesterday evening, so I'm still trying to gauge whether or not my body clock is ready, I guess, to get back into work. But I worked today. I was in the office and I didn't pass out or anything, so there is a chance that I have defeated jet lag, which is pretty good. Elliot, how you doing? I went to the gym. Yeah, Jocks, I got back, right? I was really sweaty at the time I got back because it was quite warm and muggy in London. And I dumped my suitcase at home. I had a shower. I went for a haircut. I went to the gym. I came home and went to sleep. That was basically my day yesterday. And then today, just got up, worked, and that's it. Bought some sushi, ate some sushi. Doing legs as well. Good man. Thank you, Maya. Yes, it was pretty good. We can go through my world. I wonder if I've got my book. I could actually tell you all of my matches at Worlds if this is the right book. Yes, I think it is. Who did I kick things off with? Was it you? I don't even remember. Well, see, we can talk about it. What do we want to do first? Do we want to talk about Worlds? Do we want to talk about move updates? Do you want me to just play some GBL? Like, I can if you want. I don't want to play GBL. I don't think there's much point playing a lot of GBL if we've got the move update tomorrow, but I can do if you just want to see some battles. Or we can go through. You want to go through the move updates, Chocks? Okay. I think we should do that because I haven't streamed since the move updates went live. You want Worlds update as well? You want new meta? What was the funniest thing to happen in Hawaii on my road trip? Good question. Colin, can you think of any? What was the funniest thing? Oh, Elliot, I'll tell you the funniest thing. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a little bit of the road trip. Then I'll dip back into Worlds. Then I'll do a bit more road trip, and then we'll do move update when I think we've got a few more people in, just so I don't have to repeat myself on questions and things. So, Elliot, on the first day of the trip, right, we drive from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe, which is it's a 4-hour something drive, and we yeah, yes, Colin, yes, we're at Lake Tahoe, and we're basically going to kayak on this lake, and Lake Tahoe is beautiful. Like, it's really pretty, and a part of me is still a little bit disappointed that I didn't have my phone on the kayak with me, but we didn't have a dry bag or anything, so it wasn't really worth the risk. So we were just taking lots of mental pictures of all the scenery we could see, and you're just imagining you're on this absolutely massive lake, but there's like mountains in the background and forests and everything, and it was like ridiculously picturesque. And so the people on this road trip, it's myself, it's Colin, it's Colin's brother Kelvin, and it's Nezabethan, Andrew. And as soon as we were given the kayaks, right? Oh, Casino, thank you very much for the sub. I appreciate you, dude. As soon as nice. As soon as we were given the kayaks, Andrew asked. He said, "How far can we go? You know, how far are we? Are you okay with us paddling out into the lake?" And the instructor dude, he was just like, "Look, can you see that?" He pointed at some marker like in the distance, like some landmark in the distance. He was like, "Don't go further than that." He goes, "But to be honest, you probably won't even reach it unless you're like an Olympic swimmer and Olympic rower, sorry." And Andrew seemed to take that as some sort of challenge. And as soon as this instructor said, you know, you need to be some Olympic level rower to reach it, Andrew started going out. And I was a little bit further back with Colin and with Kelvin, and we were out paddling on our kayaks, and we were just chatting and trying to take in the scenery. As I say, it was gorgeous. So we're chatting, trying to take in the scenery, and a couple of seconds later, we realised that that Andrew's gone ahead, and so we're looking at him, and we're like, okay, he's taking this really seriously, and he's super keen to kayak out. Solympian, thank you very much for the sub, mate. It was good to meet you in person in Hawaii, and I hope you enjoyed your trip as well. I'm just doing a very quick recap of a story that happened at Lake Tahoe, where Nezabethan decided that being told that you could only reach a certain point on the lake if you were an Olympic rower, he took personally, and he just went off. And after a while, we were like, Andrew's gone quite far now. He's really pushing it. But we're getting close to half an hour. We only had an hour on the lake, so we're getting close to half an hour. We should just probably turn around and start making our way back. And so we start to do that, and Andrew just doesn't turn around. And there are various things happen in the meantime. I fall out of my kayak a number of times just because I'm being a little bit, I'm messing around a little bit, and also you get a little bit more tired every time you fall out and have to climb back in. So every time I climb back in, I'd then be a little bit more tired and somehow fall out again, and it would just get progressively worse. So Colin and I were focused on me constantly falling out and laughing at that. And eventually we started going back, and we started to realise that we haven't seen Andrew in a long time. And so we look back onto the lake, and we just can't see him. And our hour finishes, and we get back to the shore, and we're just like, we still can't see Andrew, and the hour's up, and we can't even see him, right? And bear in mind, you can see 45 minutes out, right? It would the distance that you could see, it would probably take you 45 minutes to kayak there. So the fact that we couldn't see Andrew and the hour was up, we were a little bit like, something's gone wrong, right? Something's gone wrong. And we are sat there on the side, and we are waiting for ages. And we tell the instructor, we're just like, oh yeah, we're just waiting for the last person. And he gives us binoculars, and he's like, oh, can you just let me know where he is, so I've got an idea. And we use these binoculars, and we still can't quite see him. We see something that we think might be him, but we can't tell. And nearly an hour passes, and Andrew is gone. And we are getting to the point, right? I was certainly getting to the point where I was like, this is the first day of our trip, and I think Andrew has died. And I wasn't really sure what to do, because what do you do when someone just does not come back? And it's like, it doesn't really make sense, because realistically, he had a life jacket on. So even if he fell out and couldn't get back in, it's really warm. So it's not like he's going to get hypothermia. So I was like, chances are he probably hasn't died. He's been so long and annoyed me so much by going missing that I don't mind if he had. But also he'd left most of his stuff in the car, and I didn't want to have to dispose of it myself. So I was like, I really hope he comes back, just so he can collect his boots and stuff from the car, because they were quite dirty. And I was getting progressively more annoyed at Andrew deciding to go and die. And eventually the instructor sent out a boat, and they had to go and find him. And Andrew had basically kayaked into the middle of Lake Tahoe, because every time that he looked to the right, Casino is exactly like that. Every time he looked to the right, he would misjudge which landmark he was told not to go past. Because when I say landmark, I just mean like it was a it was a part of the shore that dipped in and out. So he'd gone past it, not realised that was it, and then was looking at the next one and kept doing that until he was just like stranded in the middle of Lake Tahoe, which is massive. And the instructor guys were so annoyed because they were like, we've had to send resource out to collect you. And Andrew just gets back and he's laughing and giggling. He's just like, oh, I didn't even realise. Like, I just kept on going. And we were like, Andrew, you knew you had an hour. He's like, I didn't know how much time had passed. And I'm like, how can you be so in your own world that like an hour and a half passes and you don't realise that you've passed the 30 minutes you should have passed to turn around again? So he was still having the best time of his life up until we made sure that he felt guilty when he got back, and I was just like, you're walking home, you're not getting in the car again. But that basically set the tone for the whole trip, in which Andrew was the most useless. He was the most useless travel buddy I think I've ever possibly had, and he did improve here and there along the trip, but generally speaking, it was next level uselessness. But it was funny. He was funny, so I'll give him that. Yeah, I agree. All right, that was Lake Tahoe, and it's basically we had 2 weeks of this kinds of. Oh yeah, when we were asking him, we said, how could you not tell that half an hour had passed? And he's like, I'm really not sure. Like, I was trying to look at the sun, but we're in the West Coast and we've got a slightly different latitude here, so I can't quite judge what time it is. And we were like, Andrew, I was like, I wish you had drowned. For that comment alone, I wish you had drowned. But yeah, that, Elliot, to answer your question, that set the precedent for 2 weeks of traveling with Andrew. And it was pretty much along those lines for the majority of the trip. Right, let's before we will. But let's not do the world's recap yet, just yet, because I do want to actually jump into this move update because it was pretty big, and you know, anyone who's been watching my streams knows that a couple of Pokemon that I've been hedging my bets on are maybe affected by this update. So let's take a look. Vampirus, thank you very much for the sub. Appreciate you. The trip was really good. For anyone that doesn't know, I was actually vlogging on Instagram the whole of my road trip with the guys. So if you have Instagram, I think my username is Tomahawk_UK on Instagram. So there's a highlight for the USA, and you can flick through that, which was very enjoyable. And maybe I should vlog more things because it was. I enjoyed it. Do I want credit for Hooper? Yes, please. Was it exciting when they scrolled through at the end of day one? Yeah. So for anyone that I mean, you all probably know, right? At the end of day one of Worlds, they had the move update announced early, and a few of us knew that it was coming then. So we were just like making sure that everyone stuck around to listen to it. And then when it was being announced, like the screams, people were cheering, throwing their arms in the air. They were going wild. And then for like an hour or whatever afterwards, people were still like frantically running around discussing the updates and things. So that was pretty cool. For anyone who's got Pokemon Community Game in chat there, there's a Pancham that's escaped, which is maybe a little bit of a foreshadowing of what's to come. But let's have a look. So firstly, what I want to do is, obviously you'll all have looked at the update yourselves. I'm interested to hear what you guys think of it. I guess I want to know as we go through if we like the change or if we don't like the change and things. So first one, the obvious one, the biggest one, is updates to the combat system. It's the switch timer has gone from 60 seconds to 50 seconds, and I just want a general gauge. Do you know what? Should I do a poll? Should we start with a poll? Remind me how to do this. New poll. Switch timer reduced. So we're going to put the poll up. You can tell me, do we like it? 2 minutes. Start poll. There we go. Poll is up. Shadow Drapion, Shadow Drapion. Bowley, you know I like Shadow Drapion. And Bowley, shout out to Bowley, by the way, because Bowley's helped me a lot with finding my 6th pick for my Worlds team. And scrimming with that team for a while. Shout out to you, Bowley. Okay, the poll is up. What do we think of the switch timer reduction? 60 seconds to 50 seconds. And one of the reasons why this is helpful is because it reduces RPS. And the way it does that is by giving players an opportunity to switch out of a negative matchup, for example, earlier than you would otherwise have been able to. And honestly, if you wanted my opinion on it, I think we could probably reduce it further. But I think 50 seconds is a conservative first step. I would not be surprised if before the end of the season, not this max out season, but before the end of the Play Pokemon season this year, I think that we might even see 40 seconds. There is a chance. There is a chance we see 40 seconds. 30 seconds, yeah, 30 seconds is a little bit much. 50 seconds, what you can do is you can basically compare the switch timer to the average duration of a one shield scenario matchup. And so based on any given meta, if you look at the one shield scenario matchup average across the entire meta, if it's greater than 50 seconds, then what that means is by the time you play out a one shield scenario, the switch timers are up anyway. If it's less than 50 seconds, that means... sorry, the other way around. If it's less than 50 seconds, you're playing out the one shield scenario before the switch timer's up. If it's greater than 50 seconds, that means you can actually switch out prior to the one shield scenario playing out. So you're less stuck. It looks like most of you are in favor, which is a good thing, because I'm personally in favor of it. And as I say, I would like to see it go further. So 40 seconds would be too good for self-debuffing moves, Sammy says. Is that a bad thing? Is the question. Is it inherently a bad thing for self-debuffing moves to be stronger? If we see that stuff like Wild Charge becomes oppressively strong, you can just buff Wild Charge. You can just nerf Wild Charge, right? So yeah, they are already strong, right? But usually a lot of the flimsier Pokemon are the ones that use those kinds of attacks. So if you're telling me that, oh, Shadow Electivire is going to become better if we have 40-second switch timer, you're not dissuading me there, Sammy. We haven't had a proper mechanic change for a while. No, I agree, Bowley, and honestly, I'd like to invite more. I think at some point we can also discuss Rubik's video that he posted, which garnered a lot of attention recently. I'm happy to chat through that as well. We can talk through that and my views on that video. But let's carry on going through the move updates. Okay, so let's go to the real ones. The real ones are these attack changes, and I don't know if anyone remembers when we were talking about this originally, and I said that what I would like to see are the top 20 Pokemon from last season all nerfed. Whatever the top 20 are, nerf them all so that we can start fresh, because we're going to have... This is going to be the biggest update of the year, right? You're not going to see an update as big as this until after Worlds next year. So why not just completely tear apart the top 20 and go from there? And I think, generally speaking, they've pretty much achieved that here. So the first one that they listed here was a Rock Slide nerf. And I remember the reaction to this was a little bit mixed, because a lot of people... Understandably, a lot of people are big fans of Vigoroth. And I think that when people first saw this nerf, they thought, oh, they're nerfing Vigoroth. And maybe by the end of when we have a look at everything, we take everything into account, you might be persuaded that actually this wasn't ever a Vigoroth nerf. Vigoroth might just have been collateral to this nerf. So Rock Slide has gone from 75 to 65 power, so at 45 energy, that makes Rock Slide a discharge nerf, a discharge clone, doesn't it? So if you're just trying to get a gauge of where Rock Slide is now, it is now the same damage per energy as discharge. I'm not going to do a yes or no for every single. I'm not going to do a yes or no for every single move update, but I'll tell you what I think about it. And if you agree or disagree, feel free to just drop it into chat. If you don't like a particular update, just say it, and then I can go into it a little bit more detail. But generally speaking, I'm just going to assume everyone's relatively happy with these updates. So Rockslide 75 to 65. Wing attack energy generation decreased. So currently Wing attack is an 8 energy 2-turn attack, and the expectation is that that's going to get reduced to 7 energy. Personally, not a huge fan of that update. I think that the intended targets for it were Gligar and arguably Mantine. I personally think that you could have done that via Aerial Ace, and then you would have been able to hit Landabuzz as well. I think that the collateral from hitting Wing Attack, Foley, as you say, it's a little bit gutting for a couple of Pokemon. I think that there are a number of Pokemon out there that really needed Wing Attack, and so personally, I would have nerfed Aerial Ace. You feel that making Rockslide a discharge clone is harsh? Let's come back to Rockslide then. Let's come back to Rockslide. Counter energy generation decreased, and the world went wild because we've been waiting for this one for a long time. This was actually a bigger nerf than I was expecting. I was expecting a counter nerf. I actually expected it to be a damage nerf. This is heavier. Energy generation nerfs are generally, on average, more impactful, and by decreasing counter to presumably 6 energy rather than 7, that's a massive hit. And there are not going to be many counter users that are remotely viable now. The one that might have some presence is Poliwrath, just because of typing and coverage. Other counter users, this is massive. If you think about your 6 times table versus your 7 times table, and how useful 7 is into certain numbers for charge attacks. So, for example, let's just use the example. 40. Let's go with 49 energy, right? 49 energy, 45 energy. So for 45 energy, you would need 7 counters to hit the first one. 7 counters at 6 energy is 42. So you've added on an extra counter 2 turns just for a 45 energy attack. But then you also lose all of the residual energy from that 49 as well. So it adds up very, very quickly. And if you just think of Shadow Ball as an example, at 7 energy counter, that was taking 8 counters, right? For an Annihilate to hit Shadow Ball. At 6 energy to hit 55, that's 10 counters for a Shadow Ball. 10 counters for a Shadow Ball. That is massive nerf. I think most of us, if not all of us, were in agreement that a counter nerf was necessary. For anyone who's concerned about the other Pokemon, the non-meta counter users, you just have to buff them later. And you will buff all of them later, but you'll just use different attacks or different ways to do that. Bobber, yeah, exactly what you're saying, but I would just give it time, because there's only so many updates you can do in one go, and we want to have updates next season, right? We want to have updates next season after that. So I'd have some patience. Escavalier, Toxicroak, you name it, they will come back, just in a slightly different way. Dig, 80 to 70 power. So at 50 energy, 70 power. What kind of clone is that? That's what, like Heavy Slam? That's a pretty big nerf as well. In addition to Aerial Ace and Dig, Gligar is struggling here, right? It's hitting its attacks slower, and its main source of damage output has been nerfed pretty heavily. So this successfully with Wing Attack and Dig successfully have nerfed Gligar and very much taken it out of the picture. Parabolic Charge. So Trainer Battles, 65 to 70 power. Energy cost decreased. So this is one thing that I'd like to push for, if we can, is to change the language that we use about updates to energy. So what I would love to see is them say energy cost slightly decreased, energy cost significantly decreased, energy cost drastically decreased, right? And then for that language to become common terminology, so that we as players, as more competitive players, we have a better understanding of what that energy change is. and the more casual players aren't so put off, and or TPCI, the Pokemon Company, aren't so put off by the fact that we're talking about energy numbers, which they seem to have an aversion to. But it would be good, I think, going forwards for us to have more knowledge, because realistically right now, and I'll come on to it more specifically in a little bit, that energy cost change is absolutely paramount. Not this one specifically. That an energy cost change can be absolutely paramount to what the entire meta looks like, right? One change. The example from last year was Steel Wing, where we weren't sure what the update was exactly, and when it was released, it was massively impactful. Yeah, the game doesn't display energy generation or costs numbers, and there seems to be hesitance from the Pokemon Company to start doing that. So it's a case of maybe exploring how else we can do it so that we as a player base have the most information as early as possible. Body Slam 62. Oh, sorry. My opinion on Parabolic Charge is that okay, I would say that this is not going to be particularly impactful unless the energy cost hits 40, because it's a chance to increase defense by one stage. I will say that the hesitance with Pain, how you doing? The hesitance with Parabolic Charge, Thomas, exactly as you say, the hesitance with Parabolic Charge is Belly Bolt, and the reason is because when we simulated Belly Bolt with a guaranteed defense buff from Parabolic Charge, it became oppressive. It was horrible to deal with. One Parabolic Charge defense buff made Belly Bolt like almost Lickitung level bulk, as in it felt like Lickitung level bulk, and then it was also running Zap Cannon in the Sims as well. It was just a little bit gross, and it really made Parabolic Charge one that you have to be a little bit careful about. So I think that's why they've maybe done a stepping stone into Parabolic Charge first. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if instead of buffing Parabolic Charge further, they will buff Thundershock and or Play Rough. So note that down, heard it here first. I think that they are more likely to buff Thundershock and or Play Rough than buff Parabolic Charge again. That's what I feel in my gut right now, but we'll see. No, Sammy, because with every buff comes a nerf, and all you do is you nerf Bubble at the same time you buff Play Rough, and you keep Azu pacing as it is because you reduce energy generation of Bubble from 11 you reduce it from 11 to 10, and then that way, even if you reduce Play Rough from 60 to 55, then it's still the same pacing to Play Rough for Azu. Yeah, nerf Bubble again. Sammy, you can nerf. I think this update has shown us all. You can nerf anything, absolutely anything. Bobbert, you're going to kick us off with Body Slam. So, you would have preferred Body Slam get an energy. Okay, yes. No. You would have preferred for the damage to Body Slam to be reduced by 5. That is actually what I proposed as well. That was when I was talking about what nerfs I'd like to see. I said 5 as well. I think they've actually made the correct decision here. When I first saw it, and I saw 60 to 50, I was like, geez. That is a heavy, heavy nerf. The reason I think it's the correct nerf, with reflection, is because at 55 power, Lickitung is still meta. It's still meta. But also, Licky could have been far too annoying. And so they are tempering both Lickitung and Licky with 50 power. And we'll come on to Licky obviously shortly. Swift! Energy cost decreased. We knew it was 40 energy, so it has to be 35 energy. It's pretty big buff, right? Swift is Swift 40, 35. Must be a 55 energy attack, so that makes it an Ice Punch. No, not even an Ice Punch clone. Aqua Tail clone. 35, 55, right? Lyle, how you doing, Lyle? Zelda, how's it going? 35, 55, that is an Aqua Tail clone. 35, 55 normal attack. That's also a Weather Ball normal clone. They are identical attacks now. Okay. Good buff. Good buff. Will anyone run Ursa Ring at an event? I hope so. I hope so. Lyle, I had a really sick trip. It was awesome. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be back in a way, because when you go away for like a long time, you do kind of miss your routine and your own bed and things like that. But I wouldn't have changed it for the world, because it was 3 weeks of, you know, once in a lifetime type trip, which was pretty cool. Wiggly didn't need a further buff. Yeah, it is a buff to Wigglytuff. I am very interested to see if Wigglytuff usage increases or decreases, because my gut tells me that it will decrease. Kelvin, how you doing? For anyone that doesn't know, Kelvin is Colin's more handsome, more successful brother, and he was on the road trip with us. He organised it, so big shout out to you, Kelvin. I think, look, I think I like this buff. I know it looks like a Wigglytuff buff, but I actually don't think Wigglytuff is the one that benefits most from this, by any means. I actually think that other users of Swift benefit more, and it also becomes a move that we could maybe distribute further. Colin, I'm just teasing you. Colin knows he's my favourite. I agree, Callie. I think Clefable could be interesting, and I'm very interested to see what movesets people run on Clefable, because there is very reasonable argument to run Swift Meteor Mash. And if you don't know why, then get ready, because it's your first Tomahawk maths lesson of the day. One of the things that I look for when I'm picking teams is energy efficiency. Fairy Wind, we know, gives 9 energy. Yeah? Now, how many Fairy Winds do you need into a Meteor Mash? Meteor Mash is 50 energy. So 9 into 50, you'd need to do 6. And you get 4 residual, right? 4 residual. Residual meaning how much is left over. 4 energy left over. Now, if you wanted to go for another Meteor Mash, how many do you need now? If you've got 4 energy to start with, how many do you need for your second Meteor Mash? Well, 9 times 5 is 45. 45 plus 4 is 49. So 5's not enough. You needed 1 energy. That's annoying. That's really inefficient. Where'd you get 1 energy from? And then you realise that Fairy Wind into Swift is 4 Fairy Winds for 36 energy for a 35 energy attack. And all of a sudden, your Swift plus 2 Meteor Mash is perfectly energy efficient. And Fairy Wind is fast enough that you are very likely to reach 3 attacks with the Clefable. That's why I think you could run Fairy Wind, Swift, and Meteor Mash based on the key point, the prominence of Fairy in the meta. So the point is, if Fairy is prominent in the meta, Clefable becomes a Fairy Slayer. There are Pokemon like Galarian Weezing. Carbink could still well be around, even though it's got a Rock Slide nerf. It might not be nerfed because of the buff to Power Gem that we'll see later. But if Galarian Weezing becomes popular, if Wigglytuff ever tries to become popular, if Whimsicott starts to pop off, then Clefable Meteor Mash is a good Fairy that is an anti-Fairy. And so the question is, are you using your Fairy as a Fairy? Because if you are, you might not even want to use Clefable. You might not need Clefable to be your best Fairy as a Fairy attacker. And that's why, that boy Jay, when you say 0 damage build, it depends on what you want from your Fairy. If you want the typing of having a Fairy type, but you don't need the Fairy damage output, then Clefable could be a really good option. And that's why I'm really happy, as we'll come on to later, the Fairy Wind buff, because it's given us such a different variety of Fairy-based usage. It's no longer Charm. It's no longer just Azuan Charm, which is what we've had for a while with a dapple of Whimsicott, I guess, but not really. Zweilous, congratulations also on your Worlds run. We think fairies will be common, but they'll also be 80% Azu. Zweilous, we will come on to this, okay? We will come on to this. Because there is another way that you're going to hit fairy later, depending on what we get. Machamp is similar, just like Quag this season. Yes, Callie, we'll come on to Machamp as well. We'll come on to Machamp. We use Wims. Okay, Mudshot nerfed, similar to Counter. This is a massive nerf to an attack that lots of people thought was untouchable. When it first came up on screen, a lot of people saw that it had gone from 3 to 4 power, and there was confusion. They were like, wait, why are they buffing Mudshot? And then you see the energy generation is decreased. The expectation is to 8 energy, which would make this 4 and 8. Yeah, which is worse than your Powder Snows and things. This is like a Spark or something, like a previous Spark. 4 and 8. This is a heavy nerf. I think Quagsire will be fine. I think a lot of other Mudshot users will try and shift away from Mudshot if they can. The reason why I think Quagsire is fine is because Mudshot at 8 is still very energy efficient into Stone Edge, and it's still pretty energy efficient into Aqua Tail. It's ever so slightly slower, but depending on a meta and as a Mud Boy, if you want fast charged attacks with rock damage, I think Quagsire still has play. Future Sight to 110 power. What do we think? This is obviously hitting Cresselia. At 65 energy and 110 power, this is now matching the nerf that we previously saw to Earthquake. Future Sight and Earthquake previously have been 65 and 120. They are now both 65 and 110. Is Hurricane also 65, 110? Maybe. Can't remember off the top of my head. But this is bringing Future Sight down. What do we think? Bobber, you are spot on. You are absolutely spot on. This is designed to keep Cresselia on Future Sight. It is designed very, very specifically to prevent people running, or to dissuade people from running Future Sight Cresselia to hit Clodsire. Some people still will, because it is still better than Moonblast into Clodsire, but it is a little bit worse into neutrals, so there is that aspect to consider. Jocks, Cresselia is still a decent answer into both. This time it can lose versus both as well, because it can already lose versus Gator. It generally can still beat Clodsire. Oh, actually, I don't know after Poison Sting buff. It generally used to be able to beat Clodsire straight Grass Knot. I think this is a sensible nerf, because even though we want Gator Clod Core Breakers, I would prefer that they are not legendaries. I would prefer that they are not XL Pokemon. I would prefer, ideally, they're not Shadow Pokemon. As much as I love Shadows, I want us to have as much accessibility going into next season as possible. I do think that we have achieved that with this update. We can go into it in more detail, but I do think we've achieved it. I think Future Sight nerf, for me, is good. Fire Spin from 10 to 11. The first Pokemon that should be springing to mind is your Alolan Marowak. Why do we want a Psychic type to not have a type advantage into Poison? Jokes, that's not what I said, my friend. That is not what I said. What I said is that I don't want that Psychic type to be Cresselia. With Future Sight, it does still beat it. Jocks, it does still beat Clodsire with Future Sight, right? It does still beat it. Callie, it's not the first Pokemon you think of. Yeah, that is true. This is a Heatran buff as well. It's also a Solgaleo buff, so we can maybe talk about Master League in a little bit. I know you're greatly Heatran. You'll feel is relevant here. Jocks, just to finish my point, Future Sight does still beat Clodsire, so if you'd like Cresselia as that core breaker, you can choose to run it. What it just slows down, two things it's really good for. Firstly, is it reduces Cresselia's neutral play ever so slightly. Second thing, more importantly than that, the intention with this entire update is to give us completely new, vibrant meta and reduce RPS where possible. What Pokemon, when paired with Clodsire, is really strong and would become massively RPS if everyone was running a Future Sight Cresselia? Tell me. You tell me. I'm not going to tell you. You tell me. No, not Empoleon, Elliot. Correct, Maya. Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz Clodsire. We know Dark and Poison pairs well. Mandibuzz pairs very well with Clodsire. And if people were trying to run Future Sight Cresselia, you are inviting a horrible, horrible, hard answer with Mandibuzz. So I would prefer for that psychic answer to not be Cresselia. Unfortunately, there are not many options, and a couple of the psychic types that I'll touch upon a little bit later are also walled by Mandibuzz. But for the fact that it's legendary, for the fact that you need to trade it for better IVs, and for the fact that you would be heavily RPS'd into a Mandibuzz, I'm perfectly happy for Cresselia, if possible, to step away. I don't think it will step away. I still think Cresselia is very good, but with Moonblast, at least it can hit back on Mandibuzz. Okay, Steel Wing, energy generation decrease. This one also prompted people to stand up in the crowd at Worlds and cheer, and I do not blame them. Steel Wing is going to go from... What the heck is Steel Wing at the moment? 7-7? 6-7? 6-7 to 6-6. 6-6. Is that like a feint attack clone? Maybe. Something like that. So, Skarmory is nerfed. You wish they nerfed damage rather than energy. Wait. Zoilus, wait. So, energy has decreased to slow Skarmory down. But what is this next one? And team, what you see right here, this change defines the meta for next season. Okay? Because if the energy generation increased is +1, then the meta is as you see it on PvPoke right now. And that is a Clodsire meta, that has fairies in it, it's Poison Fairy, that kind of vibe, right? Poison Fairy Dark, you'll have a lot of that kind of vibe. It'll be a Poison Fairy Dark meta. If this Metal Claw buff is +2, which is what has been proposed, if they accept the proposal to +2, if they're not conservative, right? If they go, do you know what, let's just do it. Do you know what Pokemon becomes #1 in the rankings? If Metal Claw is +2, no surprise, Shadow Empoleon will hit rank 1 on PvPoke. Okay? Not Dialga. Shadow Empoleon will hit rank 1, and it will also open the door to another massive option in Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn with Steel, Grass, Electric will be a really, really interesting option into the meta. It will beat Clodsire. It will beat Fairy. It will have pretty good play into Mandibuzz. It will beat Feraligatr. It will beat Empoleon. It has funky typing, so you can still beat it. You can still beat it, right? It's not going to be unbeatable by any means, but it will be a really nice core breaking option. It'll allow Grass to be present in the meta, and I am very, very hopeful that Metal Claw is +2. Very hopeful, because it'll shake things up in a way that I think will be really, really enjoyable. Rock Slide nerf, there are a couple of reasons, so let's go to them now. No, we're not going to go to them now. I'll do it when I go through the buffs, because I want to explain to you when we have the whole picture, so why I think Rock Slide's been nerfed. Trailblaze, happy with this. Actually a little bit surprised with this one because I was also expecting Flame Charge to be mirrored alongside Trailblaze and also come down in energy. They are clone attacks. They were clone attacks in Go. They are clone attacks in the main series game. I was expecting Flame Charge to get buffed as well. I'm not that fussed that it hasn't been, but a Trailblaze buff is really nice. It helps Skuntank's pacing ever so slightly, and it helps quite a lot of the other Pokemon like Oranguru, which has a much more energy efficient Trailblaze now. From Confusion 12 into 45 is much nicer than 12 into 50, and there are a couple other Trailblaze users as well that might pop up at some point, either now or later in the year, based on other updates we get. Zap Cannon, chance to lower the opposing Pokemon's attack is decreased. Expectation is 66 to 50. I don't know if I like this per se. I don't care too much. The nerf that I would have liked to have seen is increase Zap Cannon chance to debuff up to 100% and increase the energy up to 90. I think that would have reduced the RNG on Registeel in a more helpful way and still been a nerf, because 90 energy for a Zap Cannon is really, really slow. I know it's only a couple more lock-ons, but like it would feel slow, and it would make it very, very hard to energy manage with a Registeel, as harder than it already is. So that's the nerf I would have liked to see. They've opted for this instead, which is fine. Smackdown went from 12 to 11 power. I actually very vividly in my head remember Valiant Vish standing up, screaming, arms in the air raised at this change, and in the corner of my eye, Onion Frank on his knees crying that his Basti has been nerfed. Me too as well, obviously my Basti, but I was happy with this nerf. As was I with the following nerf, Razor Leaf, because I'm so tired of seeing Grass Hole in GBL. I think almost everyone is. So Smackdown to 11 power, Razor Leaf to 9 power. Smackdown still technically usable. Razor Leaf really is bad now. Razor Leaf is really bad. Smackdown still has play. I do think Grass Hole will drop because Razor Leaf cannot now 2-shield through some things. Very specific example, Sammy and I have actually already discussed this one, is Clodsire will now beat Shadow Victreebel in the 2-shield scenario because the Razor Leafs just don't do enough damage. And so a Clodsire reaches 3 Stone Edges, which with Poison Sting damage is enough to take out a Victreebel. So I would be extremely surprised if we still see Grasshole, because the entirety of a Grasshole team, whether it's Basti, whether it's Tropius, whether it's Shadow Vic, oh, why has my thing done that? Or whether it's your Fairy that's sometimes in the back of a Charmhole Grasshole style team, Clodsire will beat them all. And now that Gligar has been nerfed, Clodsire's one of Clodsire's biggest counters in Gligar and in Skarmory, of course, and in Lantern, and in your Mud Boys that were running Mudshot, have all had heavy nerfs. If you're running Grasshole into a Clodsire, you're going to struggle. Astonish from 9 to 12 power. This makes Astonish one of the best fast attacks in the game. Bobbert, what core breaks Grasshole? Clodsire. Clodsire core breaks Grasshole. Astonish has gone from 9 to 12 power. So now it's 12 power, 10 energy, right? That is a better attack than Dragon Tail. Dragon Tail is 13 damage for 9 energy. Generally speaking, energy generation is slightly more valuable. 12-10, Astonish is probably, on paper, better than Dragon Tail. And we could have some very interesting Astonish users pop up as a result of this, which I think is very exciting. One of them could well be Decidueye. I'm interested to see if people use Decidueye with Astonish. And there are a few other things as well. Tom, thanks very much, dude. Appreciate you. Hope you had an awesome time in Hawaii as well. We're just going through the move updates at the moment, and I'm very pleased about this one. Amoonguss, yes, Amoonguss runs Astonish as well. I think Astonish is this is a really, really good buff. Astonish, no, Driftblim not so much. Driftblim not so much. Let me show you the Astonish users. So, Dunsparce, not going to run it. Golurk, not going to run it. Golurk, not going to run it. Dusknoir, right? If this year, not this season, if this year, Dusknoir is given a fighting charged attack, like Dynamic Punch, Dusknoir will be really good. At the moment, you're limited to ghost coverage, and actually people might be... Oh, actually, that's a good point. If you have a low-level account, have a Shadow Duskull on a low-level account, trade it to a higher-level account, purified it, you could potentially get Purified Dusknoir with Return. And that's actually probably the best Dusknoir set at the moment on paper. So I do hope they give it a fighting attack so that anyone who does have a Purified Return Dusknoir for Great League isn't too advantaged by it, because it's not accessible. Decidueye is the other Pokemon that I think will run at Astonish. And I don't really see many of these being relevant. Amoonguss, yes, can run Astonish. Questionable how meta it's going to be. No, I'm talking about Sammy. I'm talking about a really old Duskull. That's why I'm saying it's not accessible. And Dragapult. Dragapult is being given Astonish. I personally... Wait, did they not give Dracloak Astonish? Okay, if Dracloak... Oh no, Dracloak has Astonish, sorry, cool. Dracloak could run Astonish one day as well, if it gets another buff. Because Dracloak is a way more accessible version. This is Giratina accessible form, okay? So if they give it a cheaper dragon attack, if they give this Breaking Swipe, Dracloak is meta for sure. For Dragapult, I probably actually wouldn't have given Dragapult Breaking Swipe. I would have given Dragapult Psychic Fangs. And the reason is that firstly you want the 100% guarantee for Dragapult because it's so squishy, and then the other reason is because I think variety of move coverage would have been better, and Dragapult will one day receive a community day where it receives its signature attack, which I believe is called Dragon Darts, D-A-R-T-S, Darts. And Dragon Darts could have been a cheap dragon attack, and you could have run Astonish, Dragon Darts, and Psychic Fangs. So personally, that's what I would have done with Dragapult, but they've chosen to give it Breaking Swipe instead. And I don't expect Dragapult to see any significant usage. Should you purify your Duskull? You have a Dusclops at 324 CP. Interesting. Double check. I don't know the exact CP values. Basically, if you purify it, it goes up to a certain level. And if your account... No, I don't think it will work, Derpy, to answer your question, because it's based on your account level. Yeah, it goes up to level 25, right? Psychic Fangs Dragapult. Yes, that's what I would have done. Oh, okay, maybe Duskull is in... Okay, so I'm going to tell you now, right? Because I'd rather everyone knows than only a couple of people. If you have a low-level account, like a baby account or something, and you get a Shadow Duskull on that, and you purify it, when the account is lower than level 25, the Shadow Pokemon gets capped at that lower level, which is the only way to get a purified Dusknoir lower than 1500 CP. Then you trade it to a higher level account and it stays at that level, if that makes sense. Now, it's a lot of effort. Feel free to do it if you really are desperate for it. It's not going to be like meta, but I do think it's the best version of purified Dusknoir. Sorry, it's the best version of Dusknoir. Okay, next one. Fairy Wind, 3 to 4. This is big. This allows you to start farming stuff down properly with Fairy Wind. And there are a number of Pokemon that benefit from it, from Whimsicott to Galarian Weezing to Clefable to Jumpluff and Florges as well, I guess. Fairy Wind, I think this is This is a good buff. I would not be surprised if we see this exact same buff for Thundershock at some point later in the year. And now we have it, team. This is the big one. This is the one that I've been asking for so long. Karate Chop. Karate Chop goes from 5'8", from a Vinewit clone, to 5'9", better than any of the other 9 energy generating 2-turn attacks that we've had so far, and it becomes a very, very viable option for the meta, for 2 Pokemon in particular, that is Shadow Machamp and my baby Pangoro. And you know how long I've been begging for Pangoro to become meta. Pangoro will be meta. It'll be a little bit tricky to use because it's a little bit bait dependent. But my goodness, if you don't shield a close combat, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. Pangoro is going to be really fun to use. It's my buddy at the moment because I still need to evolve my Great League Pancham, which I haven't done yet, but I have to catch a billion dark type Pokemon to be able to do that, and I haven't done that yet, so that's my focus at the moment. But more importantly, it's tricky to get. Yeah, I mean, we have had a couple of Pancham events, right? We've had a couple of Pancham where Pancham's been wild spawn. I think even GoFest was it wild. But you are right, they need to make it available in spawns during the season, because my general stance is that every team should be accessible to any player within 3 months of starting the game. That's like my rough stance on how accessible the game should be. If that you started the game today, within 3 months you could build whatever the winning meta team is at that time. Any dark type spawning in any upcoming events, not sure. We can check that in a little bit. At the moment, I'm just catching Purloin and Houndour and Carvana as the only things I've been able to catch. Halloween might have some darks, especially if we have a Spiritomb event, which I think we might get. Then you can get some darks then. Karate Chop for Machamp. Machamp's pacing, if you run Stone Edge instead of Rock Slide, is now the same as what Quagsire has been this season. So 35 energy Cross Chop. Cross Chop being... Oh, Alejandro, welcome in, dude. Thanks very much for the sub. It was good to see you in Hawaii as well, as always. So, ooh, Dark types in the Necrozma Incense. That is such a good shout. That is such a good shout that I hadn't thought about. If you use your Necrozma Adventure effect, you will attract Dark type Pokemon with it. That is such a good shout. I'd completely forgotten about that. Well done. Machamp, 35 energy plus 55. What's 35 plus 55? First to answer gets a nod. What is 35 plus 55? 90. Correct. What energy generation is Karate Chop? I'm going to tell you, it's 9. 90 divides by 9 exactly. That makes Karate Chop into Cross Chop plus Stone Edge super energy efficient, and we love energy efficiency. Okay? It means that with 10 Karate Chops, you can throw a Cross Chop and a Stone Edge. And part of the reason why I think Rock Slide was nerfed was to slow Machamp down slightly, because now you're forcing it to run the 55 energy rock coverage attack rather than the 45 energy rock coverage attack. So I do think that that is one factor for Rock Slide. There is a bigger factor that we will come on to later, but I think that that is one factor. One sec, what was that comment? I missed that. Your big problem is with shadow things. Watching an event go by where you could have evolved your good PvP IV Mon and gotten a legacy move, but it's locked behind frustration is so annoying as a new player. I agree. I am very, very much a proponent for having more opportunities to get rid of frustration. I would love... well, I was glad that they allowed you to remove frustration during the Worlds event. I would love for you to be able to remove frustration at regional events, so that players can go to regional events and get rid of frustration on the spot there and then. But yes, I do hope that we get more opportunities to remove frustration, because it is frustrating. You think we'll get Gothita Comde? Maybe. Maybe. I haven't thought about that. Pancham hasn't been in Wild Spawns globally for at least the past year and a half. It was at New York Go Fest apparently, and maybe the other in-person Go Fest, but no global access. Okay, I didn't know. I definitely have some Pancham, so I don't know where I've got them from, but I will check that one. Do I think that the fighters will see play in the more condensed play Pokemon meta also, or are they strictly for GBL? So, one key thing about Machamp, one key thing that is very bad for Machamp, and Pancham actually, if we compare them, right? So Pancham is walled by Fairy, and Machamp is walled by Clodsire. So how do you take that into account? Why do you want your fighter to be hard walled by something that's very likely to be on your opponent's team? And that is a tricky question, and I think it's a good thing. And the reason why I think it's a good thing is because we have been using, some of you unknowingly, but almost everyone has been roughly adhering to the Show 6 team building template that we've discussed, which typically starts with a fighter. It's what's your counter user? That's usually your first question, is where's the counter user and what is it? Because that dictates how the team balance looks. Fighting is incredibly good offensive coverage, and typically we would use it to hit steals where many other super effective attacks into steel aren't particularly popular. What this change allows us to do is have a couple of fighting options, but as we're going to see with the very next change, we have an alternative way of hitting steel, such that fighting is no longer near mandatory in a Show 16. So Xylas, to answer your question, I think we will see a massive reduction in fighting usage. I don't think we're not going to see it, because I genuinely think Pangoro has potential. I don't know how much Machamp we'll see. I think Machamp maybe we will see a lot of in GBL, as you say, and perhaps not so much in Show 6. But we will see Mudslap users come in. Just flick through the comments before I move on to Mudslap. Do we know what time we get the new moves? I'm not actually. Oh, it should say on here. There you go. 10 AM PDT. Whenever that is. Is that 9 PM my time? Maybe. Your hot take is Poliwrath is still sneaky good versus the played Pokemon meta specifically. Yes. So when we discussed counter, we mentioned that Poliwrath probably is the only counter user that survives because of its typing and because of its different coverage. It's still a lot slower than it was, but yes, Xylas, I agree with you. It still has plenty of play on paper. 9 PM my time. Okay, cool. Okay, Mudslap. Again, 12 power. Energy generation increased. Mudslap is very likely going to become a clone of Astonish at 1210. Tom, no, Mudshot got nerfed, remember, so I definitely wouldn't be doing that. Bubble is a pretty bad attack. I wouldn't run Bubble either. Azumarill's probably the only Pokemon that gets away with Bubble. Poliwrath, if you're using it, will still likely run counter. It gets stab on counter as well, remember. Bobbert, yes. Agreed. Okay, so Lou is so... And I actually have to shout out Lou, and I will do that in a moment. Lou is... I actually DM'd Lou straight away, and she is so happy about it that I am sure if she casts this season, I have no doubt she will make a massive deal about Gastrodon being buffed, because this Mudslap buff is massive. I am going to shout out Lou as well separately. And the reason I'm going to do that is because of something down here. This is a drawing from Lou to me to wish me luck in Worlds, because she knows I've been a big fan of Annihilate during the season. I didn't bring Annihilate to Worlds, but she drew this Annihilate. How insane is that? How insane is that? It's such a good drawing, and it's like sparkly. It's watercolor, I think. But yeah, shout out to Lou for being not only a sick artist, but also very kind to do that. The reason I didn't bring 8 was because I just didn't think it was. I just didn't think it was what I needed for my team. That's all. I like Ape. Ape will come back one day. Ape will come back one day. And yeah, it is accessible, Bobbert. It will come back one day. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Callie, it's a perfect drawing. It's genuinely perfect. I couldn't be happy with that. Okay, let's go back. Mudslap, sick. What a change. We are going to see Mudslap be very, very prominent as the replacement to counter damage, because ground hits steel, so you don't necessarily need your fighters to do that. I've seen some people suggest that it's too strong. I disagree. I don't think Mudslap will be nerfed in the next update. Wait, who was it that tweeted that? Zoilis, was that you? Someone tweeted that. Someone tweeted that they felt Mudslap would be nerfed in the next update. I can't remember who it was. Also, I like that she's been saying that it's one buff away from being meta. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's gonna be good. Gastrodon should be good now. Fighters might just be dead. I wonder what moveset Ape would run if it got Shadow Claw. Let's wait for Rage Fist. Let's see what they do with Rage Fist, and then let's see what happens to Annihilate. Zoilis, yeah, I think it was you. It might not have been you. I think it was you or someone suggested that Mudslap would get nerfed in the next update. I disagree with that. I don't think it will get nerfed in the next update. I think Mudslap buff is a very good buff. As I say, one major aspect of the Mudslap buff is to give steals an answer that is different to fighting. Bree, does it go without saying you are coming to Birmingham? Bowley, I will be at every event. You know I will be. Every event, and I'm there. Gastrodon will be strong. Gastrodon will be strong. We will see how strong. Certain Pokemon will be brought in to have play against it. But one good thing with Gastrodon is it can have some pretty good play into Pokemon like Feraligatr and Clodsire. So when people are worried about Feraligatr, Clodsire, hey, Gastrodon actually has a lot of play into those. I'm interested to see what grass coverage emerges to deal with Gastrodon. I think PvPoke currently has Gastrodon at Earth Power, but I wouldn't be surprised if people choose to run Water Pulse so that they can hit Mandibuzz. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm very excited to see what people whip up with this meta. There are a couple of other Mudslap users as well. We can have a quick look at them. Shadow Marowak, because of the Rock Slide nerf, I'm not expecting to be particularly relevant. Golurk is interesting because it has three-way coverage. No Pokemon in the meta. No Pokemon in. I don't think any Pokemon in the game resists these 3 attacks. Someone tell me if I'm wrong. Can you name any Pokemon that resists ground, ghost, and fighting damage? I don't think you can. I don't think that exists. Mandibuzz does not resist Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch is neutral versus Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz does ruin Golurk, yes, but it doesn't resist dynamic punch. There is no Pokemon in the game that resists all of ground fighting and ghost. This is another Marowak, this is another Golurk. Donphan, I think you needed Body Slam. I don't think Donphan is particularly, but no, it's a 1700 bulk, you're not good. Okay, so your main users are probably just going to be Gastrodon and Golurk that we might see. Arboliva almost. What do you mean? Isn't Arboliva normal? That takes super effective from Dynamic Punch. Okay, so Mudslap I think is a really good buff. More importantly than Great League is arguably Rhyperior in Master League. Sammy, what do you mean close? Drifblim takes super effective from Shadow Punch. How are you naming a Pokemon that takes super effective damage and saying it's close? Yeah, Jjan, you are spot on. So Ghost plus Fighting currently in Pokemon Go is not resisted by anything, but Ghost plus Fighting is resisted by Zoroark. So when you add the ground damage as well, no Pokemon in Pokemon game, main series game at all can resist ground, ghost, and fighting damage. You think that they'll probably be tuning down the damage in December, but I'd love to see Gastrodon win a tournament. Okay, Zweilous, I am happy to put a bet on with you that that does not happen. I don't think that they will tune down Mudslap in December. I don't know, and I'm happy to be wrong, but I just don't think they will. Shadow Rhyperior in Master League, yes. Master League Rhyperior is going to be super cool, super strong. It now, yeah, Rhyperior is going to be really strong, and it's a Community Day Pokemon, so it's super accessible as well. It's going to be really good. You need a normal Ghost Pokemon with Levitate ability. That's what you need, right? Okay, Poison Sting. I think, expressed... When this was first proposed, I remember when it was first proposed, and I was like, oh, I don't know what I think about this. But given that Clodsire never really got to have the prominence that people wanted it to have, I think that this is a really good buff. And I think that coming in alongside a Fairy Wind buff makes sense. Right? We're keeping the fairies in check. Fairy is a dominant typing, right? It's one of the most advantageous typings to have because it resists. Sorry, it is only weak to Steel and Poison, which aren't particularly offensive typings. So by making Poison Sting a little bit stronger, by allowing Clodsire to have more prominence, by allowing Drapion to have a little bit more strength, I think this is a good buff. I don't think there is a wealth of Pokemon that will materially benefit from it, because a lot of Poison Sting users still aren't particularly usable, but it's very impactful for Clodsire, particularly because Clodsire has received a Mudshot nerf at the same time. The pacing for Poison Sting is still very good, so that you will win the Zero Shield scenario with a Poison Sting Clodsire versus a Mudshot Clodsire, because Mudshot's slower now. Next one is Psywave. This is a pretty massive buff. Energy generation has increased. The expectation is that energy generation is increasing from 2 to 4. And this makes Malamar really good. Really good. Malamar is basically going to be, you know, dragon breathing through a Clodsire in effect. It's what it's gonna. It might be what it feels like. It's 3-4 rather than 4-3. It's not a Dragon Breath clone, but it's a one-turn attack. So that's what it's. We've never used. You know, most of you will have never used Psywave before, but it's gonna be like that, right? It's gonna be 4 energy. So I was actually talking to someone about giving Grumpig Psywave, and I was just like, I have no desire to make a Pokemon like Grumpig meta. I'm there trying to be like, hey, let's buff cool Pokemon or accessible Pokemon or Pokemon that can like really advertise Pokemon Go against the other games. And then someone's like, let's buff Mashana and Grumpig. And I'm like, this is not what I want. Callie, the recommendation was +2. So I'm hoping that if that's accepted, it is +2. There is no point buffing it +1. That's the only reason why I'm also hopeful Metaclaw is +2. There's no point buffing it +1. +1 does nothing. No one uses Metaclaw with +1. So I'm hoping that both are +2. Malamar with 4 energy every one turn. Yeah, I target badass Pokemon like Pangoro, not Grumpy. But Psywave Malamar I think is cool. Psywave Malamar is cool, and it'll hit fast, and Superpower does a lot of damage. Malamar is bulky. That boy J, Pangoro is easily accessible. They just need to release Pancham in an event. It's not a Pokemon that is like a legendary. It's not like an XL Pokemon, right? Just as soon as Pancham is available wild, it's a super accessible Pokemon, right? That to me is an easily accessible. Superpower plus 50-second timer equals profit. Yeah, I agreed. Yeah. Wait for it. The season hasn't started yet. It will come. It will come. Psywave is very good. Two Pokemon that I would particularly love to receive Psywave. The first one is Starmie. I would love to see Starmie being given Icy Wind and Psywave. I think that would be really fun if it could run Psywave, Icy Wind, and then maybe Thunder. And that gives you Bolt Beam coverage. Bolt is your electric, Beam is your ice. Electric plus ice coverage together is very cool. With Psywave energy generation making it really fast, I personally think Starmie would be a cool future Pokemon to have. Psywave, Icy Wind, and Thunder. The other Pokemon that I would like to receive Psywave is Latias. I think that Latias with Psywave could be a very unique pick, particularly in Master League, maybe in Grey League, but I just think that's an option for Latias. Rollout. Now this one caught me by surprise big time. 5 to 8 is huge. That is a huge buff. Or as Though Tactical would say, that is huge. I remember when I looked at that, I was like, where has that come from? And this is part of the reason that I think Rock Slide was nerfed. Because Dunsparce is very, very good now. Really very good. And I personally don't like Dunsparce because it looks stupid. That's a reason why a lot of people do like Dunsparce. And so, hey, I'll put my hands up and say, for those that like Dunsparce, that's cool. I'm happy you're happy. But Rock Slide is... Do you remember Rock Slide was originally 80 power? Right, it got nerfed to 75. Was it 85 or 80? I can't remember. Either way, Rock Slide was super strong. Rock Slide's now come all the way down to 65 power. And I'm glad, because otherwise Dunsparce is just annoyingly good. So I think that for Machamp, that for Dunsparce, and arguably maybe also to slow down Carbink slightly, yeah, so Alice, you could say that. I think that Dunsparce's nerf to Rock Slide is more than balanced by the rollout buff. Rollout is a huge buff. It has very interesting distribution potential for the future as well. I would not be surprised if Charm one day receives a nerf and Wigglytuff is given rollout instead. They seem to love Wigglytuff being available. Rollout Wigglytuff, if it comes in the future, you heard it here first. 8 power rollout. They nerf Body Slam so that Licky Licky isn't too strong, but what a change that is for us, right? What a change that instead of having to run Lickitung, you run a slightly less bulky, 1 billion times more accessible Pokemon that does a similar role. So I'm very, very pleased that we've got a Licky Licky in the meta rather than a Lickitung. Dunsparce, I'm indifferent. Miltank, I don't particularly see being as relevant to the meta as much as the other two. I didn't recommend rollout. Alolan Golem, no, probably not. Sinnoh Stones are annoying to come by though. I've never even thought about that. Maybe. Yeah, I think Licky Licky will be. Why does Wiggly have to be meta? Bobbert, they just like Wigglytuff. I don't know. They just like it. But Rollout, I think, is going to be a very interesting buff. One of the reasons why I like it, even though I dislike Dunsparce, is because a presence of normal in the meta is generally healthy. And we had that for a long time with Lickitung. Okay, Jocks would once tell you that if Lickitung is meta, the meta is healthy. And then that all changed when they released Vigoroth. And all of a sudden, Lickitung became an RPS pick in itself. Prior to that, it might have been a little bit boring, the people running Lickitung, but at least Lickitung helped reduce RPS, and it offered some safe, like a safe switch option that generally wasn't hard answered. Alejandro, remind me that question when we come to the end, and I'll come to you. Heckmech, yes, Vigoroth is normal, but it beats all other normals. And that was a problem. That was a problem. I hated Vigoroth. I really didn't like what Vigoroth did when it arrived into an Annihilate Lickitung meta. The advantage of Annihilate Lickitung is that they both hit each other. They can both take each other out. And people were coming up, really smart, handsome people were coming up with creative IV spreads for Annihilate so that you could take on Lickitung better. And Vigoroth just added a complete RPS triangle into it, and it just annoyed me a lot. So I'm very happy to see Vigoroth being nerfed by every nerf under the sun. But I think that Licky Licky is a much better normal to have in the meta than Lickitung because it is more accessible, it's slightly less bulky, it's not running Ghost Lick, so it's not a hard answer to Ghost like Lickitung was in the same way. It's still obviously a good answer in that it double resists Ghost, but at least now it's not doing super effective damage back. Body Slam has been nerfed, so even though you're reaching Body Slam at really nice pacing, what's Rollout Energy? Is it 13? It's 13, right? Okay, so the first thing we do when we think about energy efficiency is, well, it's not the first thing. One of the first things we do is we add up the charged attack energy. So Lickitung runs Body Slam at 35 energy. Licky Licky runs 35 energy Body Slam. Licky Licky runs 55 energy Shadow Ball. So you add 55 plus 35. We know that that equals 90. You divide it by the fast attack energy, which is 13. 90 divided by 13 is 7. It's actually 91, but it's close enough. 91 is 7 times 13. So if you were to do 7 rollouts and you were to do a Body Slam and a Shadow Ball, you only have 1 energy residual. That is pretty efficient. So Licky Licky is a pretty efficient Pokemon. We can also check what it looks like 13 into 35. You've got 4 energy residual, but the fact that you're getting to Body Slam in 3 rollouts, pretty good. And then 4 more rollouts after that to your Shadow Ball, pretty good. So Licky Licky will be a meta pick. As I say, it's accessible. It's got 3-way coverage, which is always nice to see. I think it's a really good change, and I would love to see more Licky Licky than Dunsparce, but I doubt it, to be honest. Dunsparce has Drill Run, and that is Edge Quake coverage. Rock Slide, rock plus ground is what we call Edge Quake. Edge Quake being an abbreviation of Stone Edge plus Earthquake, which in the main series games is generally regarded as very good coverage. Next change, massive change to the attack. Not yet massive for Great League, but it will be. Sucker Punch is going from 5 to 8 power. It generates 7 energy, which makes it a clone of what Counter is currently. So Sucker Punch is predominantly used at the moment by Yveltal, but it has a really nice distribution pool in Great League as well. And I would not be surprised if we have a Spiritomb event at Halloween, and then Spiritomb will receive a buff in the next update as a Sucker Punch Ghost Dark type, as a different alternative of Ghost Dark to Saberline. If I am correct, if they announce a Spiritomb event, right? I don't know how many people are paying attention to me. If they announce a Spiritomb event, get Spiritomb for Great League. Because if they buff Spiritomb, it will be really good. Okay? So if they announce a Spiritomb event for Halloween, that is a massive flag to you that they might buff it in December. Okay? I once made a huge mistake of never raiding Nihilego. Yeah, Nihilego. I never raided it, and then they buffed it afterwards, and I was super annoyed. And I remember being annoyed at that, right? If they put Spiritomb into the Halloween event, they will probably buff it in December. And running Sucker Punch, and if they were to give it, let's say, imagine if they gave it Nightshade, the buffed Nightshade, which is like a Drill Run clone potentially, and if they buffed Rock Tomb, it will be really good, right? It will be really good. So watch for Sucker Punch, and there are other users as well that can be given Sucker Punch. Galarian Moltres, I think, is very much outclassed by Mandibuzz at the moment. So I wouldn't expect to see many Galarian Moltres do really well. But Sucker Punch is a nice option. Furfrou, I think, has just received a big Surf nerf, so I'd be very surprised to see Furfrou being relevant. But what we can do, why don't we go have a look at Sucker Punch? And we'll just scroll through a couple of the We'll just scroll through a couple of the Pokemon that can learn Sucker Punch. Can you see these? No, it's kind of funny. Oh well, we're just going to look at it like this. Okay, just as a couple of examples. Oh, Raticate, that's interesting. Raticate's RPS, so not Raticate ideally. What do we care about? I mean, there are some cool Pokemon here. Shiftry. Ooh, Shiftry. That'd be cool. Absol. I'm just looking at cool Pokemon at the moment, rather than Pokemon that we get. Okay, there's your Spiritomb, right? We've mentioned Spiritomb. Spiritomb, I think, already has Sucker Punch. Does it? Does it already have it? Either way, Spiritomb. Get Spiritomb. Hisuian Samurott maybe could get it. It'd be very interesting on a Pokemon that isn't even a Dark type, like Galvantula. Yveltal, we know Yveltal's going to be really good in Master League now with this Sucker Punch. I wonder if Lycanroc, Golisopod. Oh, Marshadow will run. I don't have a Marshadow, but Marshadow will run Sucker Punch. Inteleon, nice. Grimmsnarl when that comes out. My baby Urshifu. There are some very different Pokemon that could be. Oh, Wormadam. Interesting. Yes, if you give Wormadam Sucker Punch, Wormadam becomes meta. That is. Wormadam is bulky. It has one weakness with Dark type coverage as well. Wormadam would become meta if they gave that Sucker Punch. Some interesting options. Galarian Moltres will be good. Yeah, potentially. I think Mandibuzz is better as a Dark Flyer. But Galarian Moltres is definitely the only one of the birds that has play at the moment. Maybe when it gets given its signature attack, then it will be very relevant, but I'm hoping they release it in raids by then. Sky Attack. So we first saw Sky Attack going from 75 to 85 power and everyone held their breath. And then you see the energy cost is increased. So energy cost at the moment for Sky Attack is 50. Sky Attack was 50-75. It is now becoming 55-85. That is a nerf to Sky Attack. It turns Sky Attack a little bit more into a nuke of sorts, but the Pokemon that use Sky Attack primarily, Skarmory, Noctowl, Altaria, it was their cheapest attack. And so their cheapest attack has become more expensive, which has slowed them down. That is a nerf. if Wing Attack hadn't been nerfed, then Noctowl would have returned to the meta, because Noctowl has access to Nightshade. Nightshade, if it's 45 energy, would be a Drill Run clone. Nightshade Sky Attack would have worked, but because of Wing Attack, Noctowl will not come back. It's crazy to Jungles, how you doing, mate? It's crazy to think that Sky Attack started at 45-80. Do you know what's funny, right? When Mandibuzz was first being released, it originally was going to be given Sky Attack, and they changed it last minute to give it Aerial Ace instead because they felt that Sky Attack would be too good on Mandibuzz. And now, how the turntables, right? Mandibuzz now has the better flying charged attack with Aerial Ace, and Sky Attack is this garbage 55-85. So, Surf, good change. Surf has received the same treatment as Sky Attack. It is going to be slower. It's going to be more damaging, but it's going to be slower. This is a big nerf to Lantern, which again relied on it as its fastest attack, so it slows the pacing down. And this is a big nerf to Lantern. To any other Surf users, yes, Kyogre is hit by this. I would expect in December Kyogre to get a buff. I think that a few Master League Pokemon that have been collaterally affected by these changes might get buffed in December. I personally would give Kyogre Icy Wind. Yes. Yes, Surf is going to go to 45 energy. Icy Wind would also be 45 energy. Icy Wind would give it the exact same coverage that it has currently if it runs Blizzard, but this time it's a little bit faster pacing into a Zygarde. It reduces RPS by being able to debuff the Pokemon that it's hard-walled by, and at 45-45, which is pretty slow for Kyogre, I think Icy Wind Surf would be fine. That's what I would do. Lugia. Oh yeah, Lugia is suffers from the Sky Attack nerf because its cheapest attack, which was 50 energy, is now going up to 55 energy. I would give Lugia Surf. Surf at 45 energy is a pace increase for Lugia. It gives it different type coverage with its charge attack, meaning it will have three-way type coverage, but it doesn't get stab on it, right? So Surf Lugia is what I would like to see. Yes, Jungles, you could run Icy Wind Origin Pulse. Yeah. Bone Club 40 to 55 power. This makes it a Punch clone, a Swift clone, or a Weather Ball clone. So it is 35-55, your Aqua Tail, your Swift, your Weather Ball, as we're about to see, your Brutal Swing. That was my suggestion. Bone Club is very, very good. Alolan Marowak will have a lot of play. It is now the best Fire Ghost type. It overtakes Skeledirge, and it has really good potential with the Fire Spin buff as well. So I'm excited to see people use Alolan Marowak. Obviously, it really doesn't want to see Mandibuzz either. So Mandibuzz, I expect Mandibuzz to get a nerf in December, because there are a few Pokemon that are popping up that are struggling to be used because of Mandibuzz. I wouldn't be surprised if Mandibuzz gets nerfed in the next update. Brutal Swing to 35 energy? Gosh, who suggested that? Who could it have been? This was a suggestion I'm a big fan of. I also wanted Drapion to be given Brutal Swing, but maybe that's too much in addition to the Poison Sting buff. But Brutal Swing at 35 energy is awesome, right? It is an awesome buff because it has a really nice distribution pool, which means you can give Brutal Swing to a ton of Pokemon that are currently squishy, that needed a 35 energy coverage attack, and I would be giving it to stuff like Krookodile, to maybe even Salamence. I'd maybe give Salamence Psychic Fangs instead, but there are various Pokemon that can learn Brutal Swing that will one day hopefully receive it, that can give them some very fun options. Zweilous, I 100% agree with you. I love what it does for Guzzlord. Guzzlord now doesn't need to run Dragonclaw, which isn't a particularly high DPE attack. It can now run Brutal Swing as its 35 energy attack, and it can run Sludge Bomb, and we like three-way type coverage. It reduces RPS if it runs Sludge Bomb, as it can now hit back on a fairy. Let's say you swap a Guzzlord into a positive matchup, you farm it down, you come out with energy, they bring their fairy in, they're not soaking up all your energy because you threaten it with Sludge Bomb. Nice change for Guzzlord. Oranguru. What a buff Oranguru has received in this update. Okay, Confusion. People hate Confusion users. Oh, Confusion, 4 turns, 12 energy, that's gross. But no, Confusion into 36, into 35 energy, obviously 12 into 36, 3 Confusions into Brutal Swing, 4 Confusions into Trailblaze. Oranguru is now very energy efficient. It has meta typing into this next season. Okay, it will beat Clodsire, it will beat Feraligatr, it will get absolutely massacred by Mandibuzz, so I'm expecting Mandibuzz to get nerfed at some point. But Oranguru is going to be a really fun and cool Pokemon to use, and I'm excited for it. I am very excited to see how people get on with Oranguru, as long as they are able to counter the Mandibuzz threat. Tropius Brutal Swing was interesting. Deoxys Defense Brutal Swing is actually something I suggested a long time ago, Jox, but given how hard it is to get a Deoxys, I'm not too fussed that it hasn't received that yet. What else? Ampharos. Yes, Ampharos. Volt Switch into Brutal Swing Trailblaze is also really nice. Let's remember that 35 plus 45 is 80. 80 is 16 is pretty energy efficient to 80 because it is my brain has just gone. It is 5. So your Ampharos using Volt Switch to hit both a Brutal Swing and a Trailblaze in 5 Volt Switches, super energy efficient, super fun to use. I'm excited to see if people can take advantage of that, because Electric in this meta is going to be difficult because of Clodsire, because of Mudslap users. But Ampharos does have access to Trailblaze to one-shot a Gastrodon, and if it can avoid Clodsire, then Ampharos could be a fun option. Indirectly nerfs Giratina in Ultra League. Yes, that is true. Ultra League Oranguru, here we come. Nightshade. Okay, so Nightshade is going from 60 to 80 power. Nightshade, I believe, is currently 55 energy or something like that. If it goes down to 45 energy, it becomes a Drill Run clone. I think it'll be 45. And that's a really good buff for Nightshade. I would then expect Nightshade to be more widely distributed in the next season update. So maybe this one is one to hold for now, because it's not too widely distributed, but there are a lot of Pokemon that can learn Nightshade that would really benefit from Ghost coverage. So if you're interested in, if you've got some time, go have a look at Nightshade on Bubblepedia, flick through all the Pokemon that can learn it, and I want you to look for Pokemon that are not Ghost types. Pokemon that would benefit from having Ghost type coverage. They're the Pokemon that we'd like to see being given Nightshade. Power Gem from 80 to 85 power, and the energy cost decreased. I would expect this to go down to 50. I would expect this to go down to 50, and it would become a Scald clone without the debuff. And I would expect Carbink to then lean into Power Gem, as it's much more energy efficient, but it's slightly slower than Rock Slide, so it slows down Carbink a little bit. It does make it slightly more energy efficient. It allows you to run a Sableye with Power Gem, not even a Shadow. You can even now run a Purified Sableye with Power Gem. So Power Gem 1 is interesting. There are a few other Pokemon that learn Power Gem. Nihilego we've mentioned, that will also shift to Power Gem at 50. But let's see. Shadow Punch, we have another clone. Yes, that's a good shout as well. It's Purified Sableye with Power Gem would pick up Mandibuzz. We have another clone. That's all it picks up. We have another clone of the 3555 Weather Ball in Shadow Punch. I love this update. I think it's a really good change. It gives Pokemon like Dusknoir a proper bait attack now. If you can give Dusknoir the fighting coverage that we mentioned, as soon as Dusknoir receives Dynamic Punch, Dusknoir meta incoming, which I've been hoping for a long time because Dusknoir has otherwise been so useless. But Shadow Punch is a good attack, and it is better than the Elemental Punches now. And it's a Haunter buff, and some people say Gengar, but it's probably more of a Haunter buff. Although Mega Gengar is very good now with Shadow Punch if you're using in the Mega format. Ledian finally being given counter, but only after it's been nerfed. I don't mind that because Ledian is an XL Pokemon, so people who want to use Ledian can now run it properly. But at least it's not hard meta as an XL Pokemon. Fortress with Volt Switch, I think that this will be a really fun option. Personally, I would be looking to run Fortress with Heavy Slam Rock Tomb. I would not run it with Mirror Shot Earthquake if it were me, but you can do whatever you want to do. I think that the Electric Rock Steel coverage is a little bit nicer. Breloom with Force Palm, Hariyama with Force Palm, Mienshao with Force Palm. I don't think any of these are likely to become relevant anytime soon, but nice to give them the best attack in the game. Clefable with Draining Kiss. All of these Draining Kiss ones useless up until Draining Kiss gets a buff later. Okay, so Draining Kiss may well be one of those attacks that's given a guaranteed defense increase, or something similar. But until then, none of these are relevant. Pangoro, you beautiful panda bear. Pangoro is now karate chopping into Night Slash after 4 and close combat after 5. If you no shield a close combat, you are in trouble. This hits hard, right? It's not a bulky Pokemon, but it's bulky enough that it can survive a Hydro Cannon from a Feraligatr. And then if it lands the close combat, it wins. The advantage of Pangoro over Machamp is that if we do get a prominence of Psywave and or Confusion users, Pangoro is pretty good into those. Disadvantage of Pangoro, of course, is that it cannot hit Fairies back. So, will Pangoro be the most used fighter? Don't know. Maybe. Will we even use many fighters? Don't know. Maybe. But Pangoro you will see Pangoro. It is going to be funny. It is going to be funny. Licky Licky, big buff to Licky Licky. Always good when a normal type is in the meta and relevant, because it helps reduce RPS, particularly when Vigoroth does not exist, so this is really cool. And I also prefer for final stage evolutions to be meta rather than like Lickitung, which is not final stage. Spiritomb, it can now learn Rock Tomb. Wow, imagine if Rock Tomb got a buff and Spiritomb was accessible with Sucker Punch Rock Tomb and maybe even given Nightshade. That would be really good. Maybe people should try and get a Spiritomb for Great League. Pay attention to this one. Spiritomb could be very good one day. And it's more accessible than Sableye because it doesn't require any XLs. The only reason it's not accessible is because it's not in spawns, not because it's not able to be built once you've got one. So that's why I think I would like to see a shift towards Spiritomb. My only hesitation is that both Sableye and Spiritomb would be running Ghost, Dark, and Rock coverage, which is kind of funny in a way because they're the only Ghost Darks that you're going to be able to use, and they're going to run the exact 3 same type attacks. But Spiritomb is a healthier option for the meta because it would not be XL. Dusknoir, the first buff, Shadow Punch, as I say, probably needs Dynamic Punch. Martine, I have not played one single game of GBL, so thank you very much for the sub. We have just been talking about move updates and a little bit of my holiday as well. Dusknoir, wait for this to get Dynamic Punch. If this gets Dynamic Punch, Dusknoir will be top meta. Galarian Slowbro, don't care. Tropius, I mean, Leaf Blade, Brutal Swing both at 35 is pretty cool. Air Slash is pretty bad, but it's an interesting option. Mienshao, you're getting loads of buffs, but I don't care about you. Oranguru, really big buff, as we've said. This is a really good one. Persimmon, maybe give it Grass Knot before you become meta. Counter's obviously been nerfed, so you're not relevant at the moment. Runerigus, wait for your Sand... I'm going to start racing through these, right? Wait for your Sand Tomb buff, then Runerigus could be very interesting. It's a little bit lackluster at the moment, but Brutal Swing is a nice addition to it. Nightshade as a drill run clone is really cool for Hisuian Typhlosion. If it still has Hex as its fast attack option, then it's still being let down, but I can't remember exactly when it runs. Don't think these two are particularly relevant at the moment. Don't think this is particularly relevant at the moment. Giratina after Dragapult release. Yeah, like I say, if Dracloak is given Breaking Swipe as well, then it will become Giratina accessible form, which I think is way better for the meta. Here you've got it. You've got your Dreepy announcement. Stonjourner. Does anyone want a Stonjourner? I will. I mean, I live in the UK, right? So I will have access to Stonjourner. I will be at every regional event this season. So if you would like a Stonjourner, then find me, pester me, and I will give you one if I've caught one. Rambo Sambo, what are my thoughts on Body Slam? So my original perspective on Body Slam was, wow, damn, that's a little bit harsh. 60 to 50, that's heavier than I expected. I expected 60 to 55. However, given the buff to Licky Licky, I think that the rollout buff to Licky Licky is so significant that it is better for Body Slam to be 50, given that we've seen a big shift in the meta away from XL Pokemon. I think that Body Slam at 55, you would still use Lickitung. And so I think that they are correct at taking it down to 50 as a much more surefire way of getting Lickitung away. So I do think, upon reflection, that this is the correct change. And I applaud them for that, because I had initially expected and suggested 55, and I think that 50 is actually correct. Decidueye could be nice. It has fantastic charge attacks. Are you talking about Hisuian Decidueye? Hisuian Decidueye does have some cool attacks. It has Aura Sphere, Nightshade. It runs Psycho Cut as well. It's not particularly accessible. Licky Tongue won't be meta, Rambo. Licky Licky will be meta. Licky Licky with Rollout, Body Slam, and Shadow Ball, I think will be meta because Rollout is so good. Lickitung, I don't think will be meta because Lick isn't particularly good. Power isn't particularly good, but Body Slam was very good, and Lickitung's bulk was very good. When you take away the Body Slam, all you've got with Lickitung is its bulk, and I don't think it is justified. I think as your normal, you would probably choose Dunsparce. Dunsparce has what we call Edge Quake coverage in rock and ground, and it is very bulky as well. And then Licky Licky, if you want to use Body Slam, if you want to use a normal to better counter ghosts, I think Licky Licky is your better option. So after all, what do I conclude about the new meta? Poison, Dark, and Ghost. I'd say Poison, Dark, and Fairy. I would say Poison, Dark, and Fairy. I think you're then going to have your smattering of Mudslap users like Gastrodon. I think that Feraligatr is an option as a safe swap. I think that if we have a Metal Claw buff at +2, then expect to see a ton of Shadow Empoleon and Ferrothorn. I think that this is going to be a really, really diverse... Yeah, I do need to hydrate, thank you. Manu, hi. I think we're going to stretch... Oh, my neck just clicked loads. I think this is a really good change. I think it's a really positive change. I think it's a really healthy change to reduce RPS in a number of ways. The 50-second switch timer is one step, and as I say, I would like to see it shift down to 40 one day. And then the typings that we're seeing change should give us a lot of variety. And generally speaking, every single meta will trend towards RPS, right? After 3, 4, 5, 6 months of the same meta, you will trend towards RPS because you will establish what the meta is, and then you will hit it with anti-meta, okay? So that is what you expect from every meta. The advantage of this change is that it's so broad, that it's so diverse, that it will take a while for people to establish what the meta is, and then what the anti-meta will be. You think Licky will be better in Play Pokemon? Artemis, are you talking about Licky Licky or Lickitung? I assume you mean Licky Licky. Licky Licky will be good, yes. It's interesting how the improved typings track with the seasonal theme Halloween Cup meta. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love that. And if in the winter update we get loads of ice changes, I think that'll be really cool too, because I think ice is going to be very unrepresented in going into the next meta. Even though ice is one of the best responses to Clodsire Mandibuzz, it's really not easy to build around ice in this meta. It's quite tricky to build around ice, and you're almost better off relying on Feraligatr for ice coverage than you are running an ice type yourself. I think some people might lean into Pokemon like Frostlass. If Metal Claw is +2, no chance. No chance. You're just going to get Metal Clawed down by an Empoleon. So if Metal Claw is +2, I would be very surprised to see Ice, personally. And again, Dugong for that reason, right? If Metal Claw is +2, Ferrothorn murders Dugong. Even Empoleon, like, very, very strong into Dugong. A/slash can still have play. I think Dugong, we'll wait to see until the Metal Claw buff. And that's why you can't build a team right now. Right? You cannot build a team right now until you know what Metal Claw is. If you are building a team with Metal Claw +1 and you're correct, then fair enough, right? But if you are hedging all your bets on Metal Claw +1 and it becomes +2, you are going to have to start from scratch. You will completely start from scratch because Shadow Empoleon will be the best Pokemon in the game. It's as simple as that. Shadow Empoleon will be 5-5 into Hydro Cannon Drill Peck with pretty good typing. It's squishy, but when it's that fast, it'll become the best Pokemon in the game. And I think that Metal Claw should be +2 because I don't think anything will become broken that would be a problem. People have mentioned Dialga. You're probably not shifting to Metal Claw with a Dialga. You lose most of your Dragon wins. What team do you run tomorrow? Matt, wait to see what Metal Claw is, right? Mudslap RPS will be crazy with Metal Claw. Why do you say that? Why do you think that, Zweilous? Because Ferrothorn would be a Metal Claw user that beats Gastrodon, and Empoleon is able to hit Gastrodon back with Hydro Cannon. None of them are getting hard walled, right? Yes, you can shield through and Mudslap down, but it's not like, that's not RPS. That's not RPS, that's just fast attack damage. And I just think Metal Claw with Ferrothorn to threaten Gastrodon, with Empoleon to threaten the fairies and the Clodsires, but being squishy enough to be shielded through, will just be a way. It'll be fun. It'll be really fun, and people who are thinking that Feraligatr will be too strong, having Metal Claw Ferrothorn as an option would be good, I think. +2 would be broken. Well, what uses Metal Claw that would be broken? Because Ferrothorn, it doesn't have particularly great typing in grass. Well, hold on. Yeah, okay, so you're agreeing that Ferrothorn's fair, right? Because Ferrothorn is not doing fast attack damage to Gastrodon. It's not able to fully farm down a Gastrodon, but it can threaten it in one hit, and it's taking neutral damage from the Mudslaps as well, so it's not like it's a hard wall by any means. In terms of more steals into Gastrodon, yeah, I mean, there aren't a ton of steals to be used in this meta, to be honest. G-Fisk with Metal Claw, I think, would be, well, obviously if Metal Claw gets +2, then you're obviously running Metal Claw with a G-Fisk. Rock Slide's just been nerfed, so it's hard to use. Would be very funny to see people run Metal Claw, Muddy Water, Earthquake, G-Fisk. It'll still be a bit of a struggle because Muddy Water is pretty bad. So I'm not expecting G-Fisk to pop up anytime soon. But in terms of Gastrodon polarizing matchups, like, I don't know, like we've mentioned Oranguru, we've mentioned that we've got a few Trailblaze users. Malamar, I just do not understand why people are not talking about Malamar more. I don't know if it's an oversight. I don't know if people are trying to keep it quiet. Malamar is going to be insane. It is going to be so good. And I don't think people realise, because when you look at PvPoke sims, they do not take into account switching out, switching in, switching out, switching in. When you can throw a superpower, when you have the option to throw a superpower and get out, Psywave will be +2, Sammy, okay? Psywave will be +2, and if I'm wrong, I apologise, but I am 90% confident that Psywave will be +2, 95% confident that Psywave will be +2. Malamar will be really, really strong. Mandibuzz is obviously a massively hard answer to Malamar, which is why I think Mandibuzz will get nerfed soon. One turn Shadow Claw equals kind of. It's a different attack, and also one turn attacks are better because of damage rounding. So there is if your damage is rounded up, then you are benefiting more from a one turn attack than from a 2-turn attack. So Psywave would be the best change that there is. It would be one of the best fast attacks in the game. Yeah, so I agree. Once Mandibuzz gets its December nerf, pray, then Malamar will be pretty sick. And the shiny's been released, so if you've got a shiny Malamar, you're cooking. I think Malamar will win an event. Malamar should win an event because if you can avoid Mandibuzz, Malamar can hit almost anything else, and it's 4 energy in 1 turn. Right? Think how fast that is, right? That is 5. That is like 5, what we know as a mud shot, right? 5 mud shots, right? 5 seconds or 10 turns from Psywave into a superpower. That's quick. That's quick, and that's good coverage. So I think Malamar will be good. And I think that if you can avoid the Mandibuzz, Malamar can really, like, it'll cook. A Mandy nerf also kneecaps Umbreon? No. You can nerf Aerial Ace. I actually personally would nerf Snarl instead of Aerial Ace. One sec, let me think. Okay, I would nerf Snarl. I would give Umbreon a couple of options. Either a feint attack buff, but probably not. Or give it Sand Attack, could be interesting. Or buff Last Resort. Or you could even start to give the evolution Swift. I don't know if I like that one. Maybe just buff Last Resort. Yeah, I'd probably buff Last Resort. Or give it Sand Attack. That's how I would do it, personally. But I don't think Umbreon needs to come back just yet. We had a couple of years of Umbreon. We can come back later. It can come back later. Fury Cutter, Gligar, no. Let Gligar go. Let Gligar go. Oleum, thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Huge fan of Sand Attack because I'm addicted to the animation. Yeah, I want to see Sand Attack Umbreon. I think we forget from the main series games how many of the early Pokemon used to use Sand Attack. So I would love to see them give Sand Attack to Pidgeot, for example, right? It's got a Wing Attack nerf. Go and give it Sand Attack instead. It makes so much sense to give it different type coverage. You miss Gligar already. Yeah. Wing Attack nerf was harsh for Gligar. You know that I would have given my time to win a major. Olim, I'm going to tell you now, right? Between you and me, don't tell anyone else. I'm going to win Leo in October, okay? No one else knows it, but I'm going to win Leo. I've decided. Gligar didn't deserve a double nerf. No, Dog, I do think it deserved a double nerf. I just think it should have been in the form of Aerial Ace and Dig. Because Wing Attack has hit quite a few other Pokemon. Charizard. The way I actually suggested this to Henry the other day. The way that I would buff Charizard is I would get Hydro Cannon, and I would get Blast Burn, and I would swap their parameters. Because the water type starters already have better typing. Right? We see so many Hydro Cannon users. Every season a different Hydro Cannon user comes knocking, right? But Blast Burn is so much harder to use because fire type they're generally squishier. It's taking too long to get to the attacks. I would love to see Blast Burn at 40 energy and Hydro Cannon at 50 energy. Just swap the parameters so that Hydro Cannon can benefit from the better DPE. But you now start to give your fire users a quicker Blast Burn, and then you can give them different type coverage. Right now, you're giving your fire users coverage bait attacks, which means that their cheapest attack is usually their least efficient one. Right? So Swampert, I like Swampert, right? I would give Swampert a Blast Burn in Hydro Cannon, and then I would release Sludge onto Swampert as a 35 or 40 energy poison attack. And then you've given Swampert three-way type coverage where it's Hydro Cannon as its nuke, because it's already very good. right? It doesn't need its Hydro Cannon to be its bait anymore. And then you'd give Sludge as its cheaper attack for coverage. And you'd basically swap Charizard and Swampert around, where Swampert's now using its Hydro Cannon as its nuke instead of its cheap attack, and Charizard is using Blast Burn as its cheap attack rather than its nuke. And then you can give Charizard Fly, you can go Dragon Breath, Fly, Blast Burn, for example, right? With Blast Burn at 40 energy. I think there are so many ways that you can rebalance those fire starters. I think that is how I would do it. Psycho Cut Metacham, no, let it go. I would personally wouldn't use that. I don't think it's going to be very good. Henry, what did you want to see? You were surprised not to see more Golbat at Worlds. Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, I can see how Golbat could be anti-meta. I think that Mandibuzz was just the better option as a flyer, as a flying response to Annihilate, for example. I think Mandibuzz was really good. Mandibuzz was my MVP for my team, for my Worlds team. Mandibuzz was my MVP. I really enjoyed Mandibuzz. Come to this. If anyone hasn't seen, this is the World's Top 32 bag. This is the World's Top 32 cap, which my Snorlax thing has commandeered as well. So I also got these two beautiful cards. This is my top 32 player in the world card, and this is my top 16 card. Don't know if you can really see that because of the light, but they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool. I was very pleased to go from 0-2 last year, right? 0-2 in 2023 to 9th place in 2024. Still think I should have kept going, but Beelzeboy, he won the mind games there, so congratulations to him, because I think he got top 4, which is awesome. It feels like a good number of the move updates were discussed ahead of time on this stream. Oh, Dog. At least someone's paying attention. Thomas, catch you later, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Why Basti? Well, too many people were running teams 4 to 5 times a week to Bastiodon. And because he'd led Cress in an ABA week style team twice in a row, I thought he was inviting Basti to be in the lead for game 3. And so I put Basti in the back again. And I would have won if I had just used my game 1 team all 3 games. Because it was a super safe line, and I should have just stuck with it. I should have just committed to it. Yeah, Sergio, I did say it was retired, which gave me license to use it because everyone thought it was retired. Everyone expected me to bring Annihilate. So when I didn't have Annihilate, I was like, gotcha. But Shadow Basti was just, it was very good. It was just bench pressure for most of it. I didn't use Shadow Basti once in day 1. I brought it into 1 game and it didn't even hit the field because I think I won my game with my first 2 Pokemon. And then it absolutely bodied Emmy Weedle got bullied by Shadow Basti. He was so weak to it. His Altaria got Shadow Stone Edged from like 60%, just like deleted. So Shadow Basti had its time to shine. Unfortunately, not on stream, which I will rue for the next year. But I could have gone further. And then I could have had top 8. Then I could have had a top 8 card, which is funny. I think at the time I was like, damn, I didn't win. And afterwards, when you look in hindsight, you're like, hey, 9th place is pretty cool. 9th place is pretty cool. Will I sell my cards? To be honest, Alejandro, I'm not very good at selling stuff. I just never get around to it. I just don't care to do it. I think because I've got a top 16 card, I could, I guess, sell a top 32 card. But like, I don't need to, right? Like, if someone's going to make a ridiculous offer for it, sure. But otherwise, I probably won't. Do I feel bad for defeating a child? I think I've played Maxwell 3 times this year, in Liverpool, in Stuttgart, and in Worlds, and I think I've knocked him out in all 3 of those. And I couldn't feel happier, to be honest, about that. So, no, I don't feel bad. He's the European champion. He's won his share. He's a senior world champion. He's won more than enough times already. You missed my Worlds recap stream, Olim. I actually got distracted. I was supposed to do a Worlds recap, and then I got distracted by the move updates. But yeah, maybe I should make a YouTube video to talk about it, because I've got all my matches written down and my team, and I can go through why I ran the team that I did and how I felt about Worlds and things. I maybe should do that. But I've just got back from my 3-week road trip. I'm moving flat this weekend, which is good and bad news, I guess. Bad because I lose this. And I don't. It's just going to be so much effort to try and recreate a stream background, but good in that I'm moving in with my brother, and I've never lived with him before, so that'll be fun, I think. And I'm excited for that. And I'll do that this weekend. Was it hard to see Nighttime go out so early? I'm really sad that he went out so early. I was going to say I didn't see him go out early because after he lost, he actually left the venue. And I didn't even find out that he'd gone 0-2 until much later when he texted me. But yeah, I am sad to see him go out. He did lose his first game to the world champion, but it's his first Worlds. I went 0-2 in my first Worlds. He could easily. Yekai went 0-2 in Worlds last year. Nighttime Clasher could win Worlds next year. He won't, but he could. But he won't. Alejandro, so again, as you asked for, what's the best winner in this season beside Claude? I think if Metalclaw is +2, Alejandro, then Shadow Empoleon. If Metalclaw isn't +2, then for Alligator's pretty good. I think Malamar's really good. I think Malamar will be really good. Especially once Mandibuzz goes, Malamar will be really good. Who wants a fun pick that I would love to test out tomorrow that has become very energy efficient? It's not accessible, which is why I've not mentioned it yet. But it is fun, and I'll probably test it tomorrow. Maybe I could stream tomorrow if I can be bothered. I am going to test Uxie, as in the lake trio, the yellow one. It will run Confusion into a 35 energy Swift and a 60 energy Thunder, which is very energy efficient, and I like energy efficiency. So that's 3 Confusions into a Swift, 5 Confusions into Thunder, with Psychic, Normal, and Electric coverage, which means that it has play into your Clodsire. It can hit back, I guess, against flyers like Mandibuzz and for Alligator, but it loses those matchups, but it can hit them back. But I'm just interested to use that as an option, just because I think it'll be funny. Whoever was talking about Future Sight Cresselia earlier, one option for Cresselia is, could you run Confusion with Moonblast and Grass Knot? It's not impossible. It's not energy efficient, which is why I wouldn't do it, but it's not impossible. It gives you some weirdly interesting matchups. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's just, why don't you think about these things, right? Don't as good as PvPoke is, right? Don't just take whatever you see on PvPoke as gospel. Just because PvPoke says it's the best moveset, right, doesn't mean he's carefully gone through each moveset and curated it for the specific meta that you're playing in. So think about it. Every Pokemon that you're going to look at all of the different attacks it can use. Fortress, as an example, says Artemis Dragon, right? Well, let's go have a look. What does Fortress say on PvPoke? Let's find it. Volt Switch, Mirror Shot, Heavy Slam. Well, no wonder you're rank 500. That's a terrible moveset. But what if you ran, instead of Mirror Shot, Rock Tomb? All of a sudden, you've got way better coverage, right? Why would you ever be running double steel charged attacks like that? Neither of them are energy efficient. Neither of them have a high DPE. So this is what I'm saying. Have a think. Have a think about Master League. That's a good point. Still 258. Mirror Shot, Earthquake. I still wouldn't run that, right? I'd still run Rock Tomb and Heavy Slam as your 2 attacks, right? Rock Tomb, Heavy Slam is what I would run with a Volt Switch Fortress. But this still has its standard old moveset, and because of that, it's ranked 250. What do I consider a good rank IVs? Would I build like rank 1 to 100? So Mark, I very rarely run high rank Pokemon in Show 6. My general spreads, personally for me, are medium attack, high defense, low HP. It just suits my playstyle personally. I've got quite like an aggressive playstyle. I want to be winning CMP. I want to be getting great points where I can, and I personally sacrifice HP for it. I'm not saying it's the way to go, but what it highlights is that you don't really need to worry about ranks, because different players do very different things with different IV spreads, right? So there are some people who are like, well, if I don't have the rank 1, I can't run it. It's just not true. It's just not the case at all. Yes, there are certain Pokemon that benefit from being a very high rank. So one example in this current season, i.e. last season, right? One example is Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz at a very high rank was definitively better than any other spread of Mandibuzz, right? Lickitung, similarly, the Lickitung that I had was the rank 1 best buddy Lickitung because I wanted the absolute maximum bulk. But then my Annihilate was like rank 10,000, whatever the lowest possible rank, right? My Annihilate was 13 attack, 8 defense, 0 HP. Sammy, you probably didn't get far enough in Worlds to see the difference, but rank 300 Mandibuzz does not have enough HP to win the one shield scenario against a Lantern, as a water gun Lantern, and that is really key. That was massive for my Worlds run, was hitting Lantern and winning with Mandibuzz. The number of counter swaps to my Mandibuzz safe swap being Lantern and me flipping was huge. So you needed 180 HP for that, and then the defense was relevant for a lot of other interesting matchups that I was conscious about. So there, the rank 2 Mandibuzz, no, I think mine's a rank 4 Mandibuzz, the one that I was using. Obviously, if I had a rank 1, that it was just factually going to be better than if I hadn't used that one. So that's just an example. Looking at this meta, Clodsire, you don't need a rank 1. You might even be considering a slightly higher attack. And the reason I talk about CMP, right? If you're expecting to see a Clodsire on at least every other team that you play against, that means if you're losing CMP, if you're running a rank 1, you usually have the lowest attack, which means at best, your chance of winning CMP is 50-50. If you have a tiny bit more attack than that, you increase the chance of winning CMP, and that CMP could be crucial. So anything that's almost like up to number 50 and below on the PvPoke rankings here, just finger in the air example, I'm almost like, oh, do I need a little bit of attack? Because if CMP is going to be relevant, I don't want to lose it, or I don't want to guarantee that my best chance to win CMP is 50%. Because then when you're in a match, you're like, this is a 50-50 that I win. Whereas if you have a tiny bit of attack and your opponent's running a rank 1, you're going to win CMP. That can make a massive difference in Show 6. I don't think some people like that idea. I know Caleb Peng, for example, he is very much of the view that you just run the highest bulk. It doesn't, like, whatever method you're subscribing to is fine, as long as you know what your Pokemon does. If you know you will lose CMP, play in a way that evidences that you know that. Don't throw on CMP if you know you're going to lose. If you have guaranteed that you're going to win CMP by running stupidly high attack, then yes, you can throw on CMP, but you need to be aware of the matchups that you lose by not having the same amount of bulk. And get out of those matchups. So that's to answer, Mark, to answer your question. I wouldn't worry so much about the rank. Just make sure you know your specific Pokemon's matchups into the rank 1s, into Pokemon with slightly higher attack, into Pokemon with slightly higher defense. Just be aware of how your Pokemon do. Looking at this meta here, these rankings, right? Just these top 9 that you can see on screen. This changes pretty drastically with Metal Claw +2. Pretty drastically with Metal Claw +2, because it would mean that Empoleon would hammer Clodsire, hammer Carbink, Still probably lose to Feraligatr. Although it wins CMP, so it might win some shield scenarios like Zeros. Probably lose to Gastrodon if it can shield through. Dunsparce it will win. Mandibuzz it will probably win. Pangoro is interesting. Can Pangoro 2-shield Karate Chop down? No, Pangoro should win. Beats Basti, beats Clefable. Machamp probably wins. 5-5. Empoleon will win on CMP on the third one. Don't know about that one. That one actually can, that one could be pretty close. It'll beat Azumarill. It'll probably lose to that. Beats that. Probably beats that. Oh, do you want to hear something funny about Shadow Jumpluff? Do you remember we talked about energy efficiency? Now, we know that with 9 energy fast attack, 55 energy charged attack works really well with a 35 energy charged attack, because 35 plus 55 equals 90, and 90 is divisible by 9. For Aerial Ace, it's 40 energy, which means that Energy Ball Aerial Ace is 95. 95 not divisible by 9, which makes this really energy inefficient. What can you do to address it? Well, let's go have a look at Jumpluff's charged attacks. Which of these attacks are better divisible by 9? Aerial Ace, that's pretty good. That's 5-4, right? Because 40 plus 40 is 80, 9 times 9 is 81. That means 9 Fairy Winds gives you 2 Aerial Aces. That's pretty energy efficient. Acrobatics at 60? Not really. Maybe. Not great. And you'd never want to run it with Aerial Ace. So let's drop Acrobatics, right? When Acrobatics gets buffed, maybe we can talk about it. Energy Ball, as we've just said, at 55. 9 times 6 is 54. Energy Ball is not efficient because there's no residual energy from 2 Aerial Aces. So Energy Ball is not efficient. And I hate it because of that. Dazzling Gleam, not a very efficient attack. Dazzling Gleam, you can press show stats here, but Dazzling Gleam is 70 energy. Yes, you can go up to 72 if you want to, so it's more energy efficient. Where's it gone? It's more energy efficient than some of the others that we've spoken about, but Dazzling Gleam is not a high DPE attack at 1.57, right? That's its worst DPE attack, and it means that you're duplicating your coverage with the Fairy Wind, so I wouldn't run Dazzling Gleam. $80 energy. Well, 9 times 9 is 81. Solar Beam is already its most efficient attack in terms of DPE at 2.25. But now it is also, where's it gone? It is also its most efficient energy cycle. So if I were running Jumpluff, I would legitimately be considering Fairy Wind, Aerial Ace, and Solar Beam. And I don't think many people will do that because they don't want to go up to a Solar Beam. And in Show 6, when you see that it's a Solar Beam on paper, you might not want to run it. But if you're considering Jumpluff in GBL, I would run Solar Beam. You will one-shot stuff. Or you will put it into Fairy Wind Farm Down range. But I just like looking at energy efficiency. That was, yes, Sniper Mike, you remember well. Congratulations. I was considering Solar Beam Jumpluff for Worlds, but now that it's got that Fairy Wind buff, look how much higher it is on the rankings, right? I've already lost it, but look how much higher it is now. Shadow Jumpluff in the top 20? Oh, baby. That's pretty good. So it is a legitimate option. I'm interested to see how many people use Shadow Jumpluff, you know, so I think it's funny, if nothing else. Pika, thank you so much for the sub. How are you doing? Appreciate you. Thank you. Solar Beam sounds diabolical. That's why we love it, you know? That's why we love it. Gallade, I think you're too squishy. Drapion, I love you. I love you, Drapion. I really hope you're good, but I just think you might find it a little bit hard having to choose between these two attacks and Sludge Bomb. Because Azumarill needs you to run Sludge Bomb, Clodsire needs you to run Aqua Tail, Crunch is too good to drop. What do you do? What do you do? So, interested to see how people use Drapion. I think Diggersby is going to be a really good shout. I think Diggersby is a really good answer to Clodsire. Running Quick Attack and Hyper Beam, it is able to hit Mandibuzz. It can do quick. Okay, so if a Diggersby lands Scorching Sands on a Feraligatr, you should be able to 2-shield Quick Attack down. You'd get outpaced if you don't do that. Yeah, a Diggersby should be able to land a Scorching Sands and Quick Attack down a Feraligatr, and it's really good into Dunsparce as well. So I think Diggersby, I will expect to see a Diggersby popping up, particularly if, as we've discussed, as Wiles also mentioned, particularly if fighters aren't as prominent in this meta. If Ice isn't as prominent in this meta, then Diggersby could have a lot of play. How can Diggersby have play in a Gator meta? Because Diggersby double resists Shadow Claw. Double resist Shadow Claw, it can tank a Hydro Cannon. If it lands one Scorching Sands, there's a reasonable chance you can just Quick Attack the Feraligatr down. Let's have a look at it. Look at this, even battle rating at 495. 495 is very close, right? 495 is really close. Now, let's say you're playing a 1-shield... No, let's say you start off with a 0-shield scenario. So let's say you take a Hydro Cannon, but this time I want you to land your Scorching Sands. You land it because the Feraligator's like, well, I don't want to give a shield first, so I'll land a Hydro Cannon, I'll take a Scorching Sands, and then when the Feraligatr tries to throw its next Hydro Cannon, you shield it. And then look at that. The Feraligatr doesn't actually even reach its third one. Wow. That's even better! Sanyadigo, well, thank you. Welcome in. How you doing? So if a Diggersby, guys, are you paying attention to how genius I am? Okay, I'm astounded by my own geniusness. If you land a Scorching Sands, right? If you land a Scorching Sands on a Feraligatr, you can 1-shield, full Quick Attack it down, and you come out with nearly a Hyper Beam. Right? You come out with nearly a Hyper Beam. This is a Shadow Feraligatr. With a normal Feraligatr, you probably need to 2-shield. So we'll try it again with a normal Feraligatr. And you're going to shield that one. So if you, with a normal Feraligatr, you can 2-shield and come out with 100 energy. But what you'd probably do in practice is you'd probably throw another Scorching Sand here, which would take out the Feraligatr. So if the Feraligatr shields this, and then throws its Hydro Cannon, which you shield, so you give up 2 shields, so you give up 1 shield advantage, but you come out with a Scorching Sands and 46 health, right? So, to anyone asking the question, how do you use Diggersby in a Feraligatr meta? That's how you use Diggersby in a Feraligatr meta. And I appreciate I'm pointing this way, because my screen's here, but you are looking at it this way. So that is how you beat Feraligatr with Diggersby. As we say, if we look at Diggersby into Dunsparce, and we think Dunsparce will be popular, right? Because people like Dunsparce for some crazy reason. Look how good Diggersby is in Dunsparce. If you don't know already, blue means win, pink and purple mean lose. Diggersby, very, very good into Dunsparce. If you look at Clodsire as well, remember that Diggersby is a ground type, it resists Poison Sting, it's a ground type, it resists Stone Edge. So Clodsire is forced into throwing Earthquakes. Look at Diggersby into Clodsire. Look at that. Absolutely dominant. And now let's look into Mandibuzz. You can't throw Scorching Sands into Mandibuzz, it'll give the Mandibuzz health, so you're forced into your Hyper Beams. Diggersby will lose the 2s and the 1s, but win the 0s, but honestly, the 1s and the 2s, you're still in the 400s, right? You're still not doing terribly. Okay. Gastrodon, less good. Better if the Gastrodon's running Earth Power, worse if the Gastrodon's running Water Pulse. Diggersby is winning the 0s and the 1s versus Gastrodon, losing the 2s. But if Gastrodon is running Water Pulse, which I think it might, then Diggersby will drop the 0s and only win the 1s. But can we appreciate how many of these massive meta options Diggersby is beating? and Diggersby did not receive a buff. If anything, Diggersby received a nerf to Mudshot, right? But Diggersby has a huge amount of play, and it will obviously lose to Shadow Machamp, but we're not expecting to see huge fighter usage because of Clodsire and because of Fairy. Diggersby only just loses the zeros, which is interesting, because the Scorching Sands takes that Machamp very close, but let's remember that Cross Chop is only 4 Karate Chops, right? So if you've got a Diggersby, now's the time. It is fully XL, so I would say that, but it's 2300 stat product. It's got normal ground typing, which nothing else runs. Hey, just to say, I came 3rd in Barcelona last year with Hyper Beam Diggersby, and it could be Diggersby with Hyper Beam. It could be its time to shine again. So that is definitely one of my shouts. And then the other shout, right, is when you look at this meta, what else could be good into these? And there's another Pokemon that I think could be a really nice option, that is a fun option, that can beat almost everything here. And that is Greninja. Greninja, dominant into Clodsire, dominant into Carbink. It's not as dominant as you want it to be into Feraligatr, because Hydro Cannon still does a lot, but it has play into Feraligatr. It can beat Gastrodon, it beats Dunsparce, it beats Mandibuzz. Honestly, into Pangoro, it's not terrible, because Hydro Cannon just does so much as well, right? Beats Basti. Hydro Cannon does a lot to Clefable. You're probably not beating a Clefable. By the way, it says Moonblast Swift here. Personally, if I was running a Clefable, I'd consider Meteor Mash. You're pretty good into Malamar as long as you can shield a superpower, but you don't want to see an Azumarill. But Greninja could have a ton of play into Clodsire Mandibuzz Calls. Can we use our Swag Tips IVs on our bunny? Fish, I don't know what that means. Poly is nerfed, counter users in general. Yes, exactly. Electric has been nerfed, right? Clodsire meta means electric is nerfed. Counter's been nerfed. Azumarill I do think will be popular. I do think Azumarill will be popular because it just has a lot of neutral play into... because it can beat Clodsire, it can beat Mandibuzz, it obviously beats Pangoro, and it has decent play into stuff like Feraligatr and Gastrodon as well. But there's nowhere near the same number of Greninja counters in this meta as you had in the previous one. Jumpluff is going to run through the top meta. I'm pretty sure Jumpluff loses to Clodsire, so not sure about that. Pretty sure Jumpluff loses to Feraligatr, so really not sure about that. Jumpluff also loses to Dunsparce. So we'll see. Yeah, exactly. It does resist the bubbles. If you can shield a play rough, then you can get off a bit of damage. But obviously it's not a favourable matchup for Greninja. But this is what I'm trying to say, right? I'm not saying use Greninja, but I'm saying that do you see how when you get a new meta, you get new fun anti-meta options, and this meta will give us a ton of them, right? If we scrolled all the way down to like 150, wow, Annihilate, you poor baby. If you scroll down to here, this is where Giratina Origin is, right? Giratina Origin didn't receive a nerf. It still has tons of play. It's down in the 100s. So this meta is giving us tons of options that PvPoke rankings aren't necessarily reflecting, right? Just because it's down here in these zones doesn't mean you can't use it. Don't only try and build your team from like the top 50 Pokemon. That's not how it works. You need to try and identify as soon as you can, what does the team building template look like? And then where are your anti-meta options? Yeah, Patterman, good to see you. Poliwrath has dropped all the way down to here, but as one of very few counter users that's still viable because of its typing and because of its coverage, we could see Poliwrath very much still be around, right? Poliwrath beats Clodsire, beats Carbink, beats Feraligatr, can beat Gastrodon, beats Dunsparce, beats Mandibuzz, beats Pangoro, beats Bastiodon, right? You know, Poliwrath can have a lot of play. If Metal Claw is buffed to +2, like I think it will be, then Empoleon and Ferrothorn also very much threatened by Poliwrath. Obviously, they can both hit it back Ferrothorn a little bit better, but they're still threatened by it. Scarfo told me it is D1 at Dortmund. It is true. Alejandro, I don't know what you're saying. Tryhards will run Gator Clod Core. Gator Clod Core is a good core. It's a good core. It gets murdered by Oranguru, so we'll see how good a core it is. You definitely like to know how to break the Gator Clod. Yeah, Oranguru. That is your answer. Oranguru absolutely obliterates that core. It is so strong into that core because it double resists Shadow. Single resist Shadow Claw, and it can Trailblaze through. Season 6 Play 3 meta then would be we have to wait. Okay, we can't determine what the meta is until we know what the Metal Claw buff is. Okay, wait to tomorrow. Okay, if Metal Claw is +2 energy, I want you to think in your head about Empoleon and Ferrothorn. If it's +1 energy, then you're looking at what you've got here, which is your Clod Mandibuzz, which is your Feraligators, and you're shifting around Poison, around Dark, around Fairy, with Feraligator as like a safe swap option, with Gastrodon coming in, with your Dunsparce to try and counter your Feraligator by double resisting the Shadow Claw. Fish, if you're playing strong into a Gator Clod meta, then you'd probably lead it, right? Because if you can win lead, you can start to Trailblaze and start to pump through. But it depends on what the rest of your team is. Brutal Swing is so quick at 3 confusions, which is pretty cool. Yeah. If Metal Claw is +2, do you see this number 1 here? This number 1, if Metal Claw is +2, this word will be Empoleon (Shadow). I promise you. If Metal Claw is +2, this whole thing changes. We don't know. We don't know if it's +2. We don't know if it's +2. Do I think +2 Metal Claw will be preferred for A/Slash? Okay, let's think about this. We can think about that together. So, +2 to Metal Claw will mean that Metal Claw is 5 damage and 8 energy. But you get Stab on Metal Claw as a Steel type, A/Slash, right? And Stab is 1.2. 1.2 times 5 is likely to round up your damage to 6. Yeah? 6 and 8 is exactly the same parameters as Shadow Claw, but Shadow Claw is a Ghost type. Ghost offensively hits more Pokemon for neutral or super effective than Steel. So you would probably still stick with Shadow Claw. If you don't want to run Ghost, arguably you'd shift to Powder Snow, which is also 5/8, which is also Stab, so also results at 6/8. And so, yeah, Sergio, you're spot on. It's effectively 3 of the same attacks. All of them would, in effect, be 6/8, but Ghost is generally the best typing. It depends on the meta, right? If you're seeing tons of Dunsparce and Mandibuzz, then you'd shift towards Powder Snow. If you're seeing tons of Feraligatr, you don't want to run Powder Snow. You want to run Shadow Claw. Not many things here are going to persuade you to run Metal Claw, because Clefable, you're going to win with whatever fast attack you run. But I really think that Clefable might consider Meteor Mash. Because where's Weezing? Look at this. Look at this. Weezing is 38 with Play Rough, Brutal Swing. Why is this wrong? Why is this wrong? I've told you why it's wrong, right? When you have a 9 energy fast attack and a 35 energy charge attack, you do not run a 60 energy nuke. You run a 55 energy nuke, because 35 plus 55 is 90. It is way more energy efficient into it with a 9 energy fast attack. Does Galarian Weezing have a 55 energy nuke? Hell yeah, it does. Overheat. Not only are you way more energy efficient with Overheat, you also give yourself Fairy, Dark, and Fire coverage. Can you tell me any Pokemon in the game that resists all of those 3? what Pokemon resists, right? Not neutral. Don't say Azumarill, because Azumarill doesn't resist Fairy. What Pokemon resists Fairy, Fire, and Dark? Right? Nothing. There is no Pokemon in the game that resists all three. So yes, Azumarill would be very good because you can sponge all the charge attack damage, but there's no Pokemon that on paper full hard walls. Clodside does not resist Overheat, okay? So, or Brutal Swing, Bish, pay attention. So, Galarian Weezing is rank 38 with its not very efficient moveset. When people clock that you don't run Play Rough, with a Galarian Weezing, you run Overheat, and you can nuke and dip out on a 50-second timer, Galarian Weezing usage will rise. Okay? When that happens, yes, you've got your Clodsire as your answers, yes, you've got your Gastrodon as your answer, but you might then think, could I run Psychics, like Malamar, to do super effective against the poison damage, or Confusion users, like Oranguru, or do I consider something like Meteor Mash, Clefable? Maybe you do. Because Meteor Mash Clefable is a bit weird into Galarian Weezing, right? Like, yes, you resist Brutal Swings, but it resists Fairy Winds and Moonblast, so you're just throwing out Swifts here and there, and Galarian Weezing can start pumping out Overheats and dipping whenever it feels like it. So I think Galarian Weezing is going to be very, very strong in Ultra League, where it's got additional bulk, but I think in Great League, on a 50-second timer, with Brutal Swing, Overheat, and Fairy Wind, very strong. I think it's going to be really, really strong. Should we sim it quickly, right? I'm not just talking out my backside here, right? Let's go sim it. So I'll click onto the matrix, right? Here's, if it lets me click on it. Here's the matrix. Here's a, I don't have a new meta. This is the old meta. How can I fix this? I don't want to use an old meta. Give me one moment. Trying to work out where I might have where I might have a new meta example that I could use. I know where. Just a moment. This will be worth it, I somewhat promise. Okay, team, I'll tell you what I've just done. So I've copied and pasted a meta I prepared earlier. This is a rough example of what a max out meta could look like. So just a variety of different options of Pokemon that have received buffs or that might be relevant in this meta. You can see your Drapion, your Weezing, Clefable, Wiggly with Swift, all of these things, right? Even Bruno-Regus, which I'm not expecting to be particularly prominent, but right, you've got a variety of your different meta options here. Even Metal Claw, Muddy Water, Earthquake, Stunfisk, which won't work because Metal Claw on PB Poke at the moment is only +1. So bear in mind that this doesn't take into account the Metal Claw being +2 if it is. My Solar Beam Jumpler. And then on this left side, I've put a Fairy Wind Play Rough Brutal Swing and a Fairy Wind Overheat Brutal Swing Galarian Weezing. In the 2-shield scenario, you would expect the Play Rough to be better because you're not getting Overheat debuffed. So let's have a look. Quickly scroll across. Oh wait, no! The Overheat is still way better. 567 with a 2714 versus 2020? Crazy. Let's look at the 1-shield scenario versus the meta. Oh look, again, 580 for the Galarian Weezing with Overheat, 2714 versus 2220. Let's look at the 0-shield scenario. Oh look, you're still higher, 537 with a 2516 win rate versus 2121. All shield scenarios, Overheat is better. And that is not even taking into account that you can switch out after getting debuffed. There is no world in which the best Galarian Weezing is running Play Rough. And so this 38 is misleading because Galarian Weezing will be super strong. right? Fairy Wind has been buffed, and Brutal Swing has been buffed to 35 energy, which, as I say, you will run with Overheat instead of Play Rough for energy efficiency and coverage, and Galarian Weezing will be very good. So that's just my opinion anyway. I'm usually right, so just saying. You can listen to whatever you want, but that's what I would run. Yeah, you know it. What else? Are there any other Pokemon that you guys have clocked that you think is fun or that you'd like me to consider or look at? I'm happy to give you my thoughts on them. I think a lot of people have produced a lot of content already on many of these. But if there's anything that you are curious about, or if you've got any questions, just ask. Otherwise, why don't we do one set of GBL? Just because I know some of you like actually watching the game. What are my thoughts on Venusaur? Oh no, I went 2-3. What's wrong with me? My thoughts on Venusaur. I think its pacing is not quite good enough in this meta to make up for its reasonably low bulk. Okay, think of it this way. They safe swap for Alligator. You counter swap Venusaur. They have a Shadow Claw advantage. They hit 7 as you hit 6. They can bait a Hydro Cannon. You have to shield in case it's an Ice Beam. They can keep doing that and still flip your Venusaur. So your Venusaur hard answer into a Feraligatr isn't a hard answer. Similarly, you're not hard answering a Clodsire because it's neutral into you. You're losing to a Mandibuzz. You're getting potentially threatened by Overheats. A lot of the fairies now also have coverage against you. If G-Weezing is running stuff like Overheat, you've potentially got an influx of Confusion users. You've got Malamar, which I think will be really, really strong. Jumpluff, yeah, you can hit it back with Poison, but if it's spamming you with Aerial Aces, that's kind of annoying. Alolan Marowak. You're hitting Gastrodon, yes. I just don't know if everything else. I just don't know if everything else is worth it. So, not at the top of my list for consideration is Venusaur. Runerigus. I really think Runerigus, after a Sand Tomb buff, could run Astonish, Brutal Swing, Sand Tomb. It could even run that now, right? Astonish, Sand Tomb, Brutal Swing, and I think that would be an interesting set to run. And personally, if you're going to run a Runerigus, that's what I would run. Because if you're not going to run that set, why don't you just run Golurk? Right? Why don't you just run Golurk instead? Because then you can do Astonish with Shadow Punch, Dynamic Punch. Not Astonish, Mudslap with Shadow Punch, Dynamic Punch for the same type defensively. If you want a Shadow Claw user, I don't know. Do you need Rune for a Shadow Claw user? Not sure. Best Mudslap user. I mean, yeah, Gastrodon's going to be the best Mudslap user in Great League, Rhyperior, and Master League. Drifblim or Dusknoir? Probably neither at the moment. Dusknoir, when it gets Dynamic Punch, if it gets it, then will be very good. Drifblim. It's just Drifblim. You'll use it, right? And it will annoy you with how squishy it is. Because it looks like it should be way bulkier than it is, but it isn't. Shadow Jumpluff, it could be very good. I think Shadow Jumpluff will be very funny in GBL with Solar Beam. That's what I would run it with. Did I play Popplio Community Day? I did not. I did not play Popplio Community Day. I was in Vegas and I couldn't be bothered. I think I turned my gotcha on and I got 2 shinies and maybe caught 12 Pokemon. Superior is better on second. Yeah. I would possibly be inclined to agree with that. I'm going to lose all these matches because I'm not playing any remote attention. Is Araquanid good? Probably not. Gastro wins the 2s with a few Mudslap lead. What, versus Venusaur? Jeez. Ghosts are worse in this meta, despite Astonish buff, but let's see. Well, I mean, Lickitung's been... Wait, did they shield that? Nice. Lickitung's been nerfed. Mandibuzz is going to be very prominent, but if Mandibuzz is prominent, then fairies are prominent. Normals, I think, will be a part of team building. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's going to be really interesting how much the meta shifts week to week. I think that we've got lots of events in quick succession, and I think the meta will shift like a lot in between them. General thoughts on Ultra League? Oh goodness, I don't really play Ultra League, to be honest, so it feels hard to give like a sincere view on it. I really don't play. Driftbim in Ultra League might be way stronger, but you might see a rise in like normals and darks there as well, right? Because Licky hits XL Ultra League, Mandibuzz is XL Ultra League. I really don't play enough to clock. Best Mudslapper is Claydol. Yeah, Claydol maybe needs one more buff and then it's viable. Alright, we're waiting for the Palkia in the back. Ooh, it's a fairy in the back. I assume I'm going to see a Zacian or something. Oh, I don't play cups like that. Oh, it's a Xerneas. Uh-oh, am I lagging? No, we're good, we caught up. We still probably lose this. Ariados looks really good if Nightshade's buff is good. Yeah. I like Ariados, it's cool. So I need to get rid of the switch timer here. Ooh, they should have undercharged. Team, that's how you flip switch Ho-Oh into a steel Necrozma. What about Golurk? Both Mudslap and Shadow Punch buffed. I think that honestly, I think Golurk is a really interesting and cool option. It's just very, very annoying that Mandibuzz didn't get a nerf. I have a very good Mandibuzz, so I guess I'm happy in a way, but no, I really did want the whole meta to change. So Mandibuzz still being around is kind of annoying. Also, Mandibuzz arguably creates a little bit of an RPS triangle with Carbink and Clodsire. I don't think Carbink's going to be that popular. Maybe if Power Gem is 50 energy, maybe, but like probably not, right? But if Mandibuzz doesn't get nerfed in December, I'll be surprised. I think Snarl could get nerfed in December. Probably. I think so. Yeah. Oh, Zygarde. My goodness, I wish Zygarde got nerfed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does Mandy need to be nerfed? Artemis, Mandy's creating a few RPS situations into a couple of Pokemon that are kind of annoying me. Defense drop, you fraud. So Malamar, for example, Oranguru, Golurk, all of these are struggling a little bit because of Mandibuzz. 2, 3. So we're going to throw on bad timing just because we kind of expect Zygarde players to throw on bad timing because generally they're bad. And so they don't get a Dragon Tail through. Instead they CMP, they no shield, so we win anyway. Oh no, we're going to get farmed down, which isn't good, but we can't switch out because otherwise we give away the switch that we've just won. I wasn't counting what they were on. I'm going to guess 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're probably going to Outrage. Zygarde is not nerfable. Everything is nerfable with Dog. Everything is nerfable. I'm in trouble. Zygarde is nerfable because Dragon Tail is nerfable. So I would just nerf Dragon Tail. There's no reason why you can't nerf Dragon Tail. Just nerf it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. There's just no, I just don't think there's any way I can beat this Primarina. Niantic doesn't want to nerf Zygarde? No. So instead of nerfing Zygarde directly, what you can do is you can adjust the meta. Oh, interesting. No, I still lose. You can buff other things, which is why I'm suggesting Icy Wind Kyogre. So that after the Surf nerf... Oh, good on Discharge. Right, I'll come out of that one. After the Surf nerf, you can Icy Wind Kyogre. I guess it's difficult to run Earthquake plus Crunch on Zygarde if Yveltal is top meta. Yeah, you agree? If Yveltal resists Crunch and Earthquake, then Zygarde becomes a little bit difficult. And you're right, team, that they don't want to nerf Zygarde on the basis that they want people to do roots and grind for a Zygarde. It just baffles me that they've not made Zygarde more accessible. Because I've got like a 10, 14, 12 Zygarde. I'm not going to invest in that. If they gave us the opportunity to get good Zygarde, then yeah, I'd be putting my XLs and I'd be doing roots for the cells. There's no way I'm going to do it otherwise. Doesn't make any sense. Right, I'm messing up because I haven't best buddied my Necrozma. And I definitely should have by now, but I've just not been diligent enough. So I'm hoping we get Meloetta. I'm hoping we get Zygarde. I'm hoping a lot of these mythicals that are Master League relevant become available. Ooh. They're running Sunsteel Strike? Interesting. What kind of noob runs Sunsteel Strike on a Necrozma? Not this guy. I wish I'd been counting. Because then I'd know how much energy they're on. Zarude. How many Zarude have we had? 2 so far. What attack do we think this Kyogre is running? Uh-oh, are we desynced? No! No! Yes! God, it's too easy. I knew there'd be a Parker in the back. Are you going to let me do anything? No. Cool. My game being a bit laggy here. Ooh, interesting. Still might lose this. Yeah, this isn't going to be enough. RIP. We did what we could. I don't think we can do anything differently there. Oh no. Okay. In the lead matchup, I threw my third Dark Pulse against their Necrozma while I still had two waterfalls worth of energy to take down, so I gave them an extra waterfall that I didn't need to. Does that make a difference? Probably not, but that is an area where I could have improved that. So I could have improved it by not throwing the third Dark Pulse as quickly. If I best buddy my Necrozma, maybe I can Shadow Claw down, but we'll see. I'm not actually sure about that. What if we give Tapu Fini Fairy Wind? I mean, that would be interesting. Now that Surf has been nerfed, I guess you could get away with it. What about Shadow Dragonite in the new Great League meta? Yeah, I think Shadow Dragonite could have play. There are a lot of fairies, bear in mind, but Altaria has been nerfed, which means that Shadow Dragonite is probably, of the Dragon Flyers, probably slightly advantageous. You might still see occasional mad, crazy players run Altaria just because it has got Dragon Flying typing, which is good typing, right? Especially if think about this. If Empoleon gets the Metal Claw +2, Dragon Flying plus an Empoleon is pretty good core. Everything is going to depend on Metal Claw buff. The whole meta will shift if Metal Claw is +2. Everything you knew to be true will change. Yeah, Shadow Dragonite play as well will depend on the Metal Claw buff, I think. 3, 4, 5, 6. Why are you throwing on 6? This is what I mean about Zygarde players. Always getting their debuffs. Ooh, they shielded. Okay, are they going to throw on good timing or bad timing for their next crunch? That is the question. The problem is they've always got a steal in the back, which is super annoying. Bad timing. Perfect, perfect, perfect. No! Let me out. Okay, we CMP'd because they went up to a Sacred Fire. And they threw the Sacred Fire. Crazy. They got the debuff. Ooh, I'm in trouble now. I'm in trouble. Uh-oh, they're going to catch on Zygarde, but I don't mind that. No! Oh no, I'm gonna get crunched and dark pulsed. This is bad. I think I still lose. I can't, I'm never going to reach Sky Attack for both of them, so I don't think I can win regardless. Oh, that Kyogre farm down was so painful. Oh, Sarov. Nice to connect the two. I hope you enjoyed my Instagram vlogs. I very much enjoyed making them. Being bulky is a curse. I know. Tell me about it. Joking. Right. I'll finish this set and then I'll finish up. Is this my fourth battle? My third battle? I'm not sure. If anyone has any more questions on the move updates, I might stream tomorrow once we've actually got confirmation of what they are. And then I can give you like my proper opinion on everything and what we'll expect. Because it's a little bit, it is, as I say, but until we get the Metal Claw details, it's a little bit difficult to give any team building advice, right? I can't, because currently you're team building around the Clodsire. Metal Claw changes, you're building around an Empoleon. Do I prefer roses or violets? This is a trick question. Should I say roses? I don't think I can beat a Zarude. I mean, they've messed up CMPing there, but still going to be in a tricky position. Zarude is so good. I love Zarude. I hope it gets buffed when it's a little bit more accessible. They're probably going to reach another Dark Pulse. Wit Dog, why not both? Wiggly Woo, welcome in, Wiggly Woo. Thank you very much for the raid. I hope you had a good raid. Hope you had a good stream. And everyone who's coming in from the raid, welcome in, welcome in. Hope you enjoyed. Mark, we wait until Metal Claw. When we know Metal Claw, then we know what the best 5 are. I would be trying to build a Pangoro in the meantime if you don't have one. Because Pangoro requires you to catch 32 Dark-type Pokemon with your buddy Pancham, so you may as well get started now. Use the Necrozma Adventure effect. They've stayed in. So I'm going to shield again, because they haven't switched out yet. Use your Necrozma... Oh, good shield. Use your Necrozma... They're going to quit. Yep. Use your Necrozma, the nighttime adventure effect, in order to attract dark Pokemon, so that you can evolve your Pancham into a Pangoro. Wigglyup, I wouldn't say... too gross. I wouldn't say it will take Annihilape's place, because I don't think fighters will be anywhere near as prominent in this meta as in the previous meta. So that's why I don't think it will take its place. Everyone coming in from Wiggly's stream, you will have missed everything that I've talked about the move updates and everything. So if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you right here, right now, even if they are repeats of what we've already done. Dune, how you doing, mate? Good to see you. I assume you've got many questions on the meta. Let me know what your questions are, and I will tell you what I think, and then we will see tomorrow how things play out. So what typing do I think will be top? Okay, so currently what we're looking at is a mix of Poison, Dark, and Fairy, and we're looking at that kind of meta. If Metal Claw is +2 and you add Steel to that, that'll be really interesting, because it will be strong into Clod, it'll be strong into Fairy, it will resist the standard Feraligatr charged attacks, but it will invite the Mud Slaps, the Gastrodon to come in, for example. It'll be another invitation for fighters which were otherwise struggling into a Poison and Fairy meta. It will also be able to give Ferrothorn a lot more play into a lot of the Pokemon that we talked about as well, including Feraligatr. So Metal Claw tomorrow will be what decides what the meta is. Why is Vig going to be meta next season, says Wet Burrito. Yes. Wet Burrito, I want you to check what rankings you are in the PvPoke rankings, because you will be higher than Vigoroth is. How to get an eligible Great League Pandoro if Pancham comes from level 20 eggs. Alejandro, if you don't have anyone that can trade you a lower level Pancham, I think we just have to hope that they do a new event soon. Can anyone see any dark types around? No, but I'll catch a Shroomish. So I'm hoping that we have a Pancham event soon. Metacham with Psycho, nope. Shadowbeck, nope. Psycho Cut button, nope. Advert, maybe, but that's your fault, not mine. What Mud Boys will survive? Gastrodon we know is going to be meta. We know Gastrodon's going to be meta. Quagsire, I think Quagsire will still have play. Whiscash, little bit less. Swampert, probably not so much. Kanto Farfetch'd, maybe Kanto Farfetch'd. Unlikely, but maybe. Who knows? I think. Yeah, Obama Weepslayer, I think you're absolutely right. That is massive cope, yeah. Would Shadow Swamp, Core Break, Charger Bug, and Clod? Why would you use Swampert and not Gastrodon for that, is the question, I guess. Dunebug doesn't comment because he is sad that Whiscash is so low in the rankings, and I understand that. You heard Fairy, Steel, Dark, Poison, but waiting for +2 for Metal Claw. Spot on. Well, Fairy, Dark, and Poison. And then if we get a +2 for Metal Claw, then Steel. Because Steel at the moment, into a Clod meta, into a Gastrodon meta, and even honestly into a Feraligatr meta, is not super strong. But if Metal Claw is +2, then everything changes. Shadow Hydro is more deadly. What was the core that you were talking about breaking with it? Charger Bug and Clod. I mean, you'd probably rather the extra bulk, right? You'd probably rather the extra bulk. Gastrodon is 1958, which seems similar to well, it's more bulky than a Poliwrath, less bulky than a Quagsire. I just think there are better options that will give you better neutral play. Reborn Phoenix. I think that Swampert's being slowed down. It wasn't meta in the previous meta. It's been nerfed since then. It seems counterintuitive, I think, to lean into Swampert now. Wiggly you are a Twitch streamer. You know exactly how to get rid of those adverts. Best Fairy, I would say, is Galarian Weezing. How are we feeling about Whimsicott? You're going to get Poison Sting down by a Clodsire. Ursaring, Licky, Gastro. I think Licky will be good. I think Gastro will be good. Clodgator is the real core to worry about. Okay, run Oranguru then. that's the core you want to beat, run Oranguru. Water Gun Swampert. I'd let Water Gun is not a good attack, right? Nothing runs Water Gun because Water Gun is good. Lantern had to run something, but Lantern didn't even. Lantern, honestly, half the time doesn't even need attacks, right? Lantern was getting away with every nerf under the sun. Maybe only now we're seeing Lantern nerfed. Nothing else with Water Gun is good. I think that if you want Tapu Fini to be good, you probably have to give it Fairy Wind. If you want Blastoise to be good, next season I'd love to see it be given Mudslap. Nothing else with Water Gun is likely to be relevant. Dark Pulse Umbreon, why? Why would you run Dark Pulse Umbreon in this meta? It's a Mandibuzz meta, if anything. Why would you run Dark Pulse Umbreon? Do I think Ursaring has play into the new meta? It was higher ranked than before. Well, let's have a look at Ursaring. You've got your access to Swift, and you've got Ghost and Fighting coverage. Ghost plus Fighting means that nothing resists both, right? Nothing resists both Ghost and Fighting in Pokemon Go at the moment. So that's pretty good, right? You got Swift, which is super cheap and gives you a bait attack, but then you've only got 1600 stat product and you're probably using a Shadow. So you might nuke something because it's funny, but if you're playing into a meta that has a 2352 bulk as its number one, you might not have as much fun. Welmer, famously the only good Water Gun user in the game. Bomber Snow is gaming. Maybe. Dunsparce I do think will be very popular. Maybe. Fast move pressure, but I take your point. Are we still talking? What are we still talking about with that? Oh, for Water Gun. It's just not. It's not fast. It's not enough pressure, right? It's not enough fast attack pressure to make it relevant. Because if you want fast attack pressure, why wouldn't you use Mudslap? One of the best attacks in the game. 12-10 for a 3 energy attack. That is better than Dragon Tail, right? If you want fast attack pressure, shift across to that. Are any of the Force Palmers going to have play? Probably not, right? Probably not. I'd be surprised. Psychic Umbreon. Sarah, remember that Psychic got nerfed. Psychic is really bad now. Psychic's really bad. If you want the Dark plus the Psychic combination, just use Malamar. Malamar with Psywave will be a way better option for you. What about Sucker Punch Furret? I will leave that one with you. You can prove me wrong. Soli, thank you very much for being here. Enjoy work. See you tomorrow evening if you're around. Which t-shirt am I wearing, and can I get one without the coffee trick? Okay, I'm wearing a Pikachu t-shirt from Uniqlo, and Alejandro's coffee trick is that he borrows people's t-shirts, spills coffee on it, and asks for another t-shirt from them, and then he earns 2 t-shirts. I just want my Shadow Hariyama on a Basti. Yeah, Shadow Hariyama could be buffed one day, I guess. It needs a little bit more coverage to be useful. Lick and Dragon Breath. Okay, so Dragon Breath is a 4 damage fast attack with 3 energy. Lick is only a 3 damage fast attack. So Lick is exactly the same as Water Gun, right? They're both 3 damage, 3 energy. Nothing really uses Lick for fast attack pressure. There was one Pokemon that we all know that was getting away with Lick, was Lickitung, and only because it had 2300 stat product and was a normal type with 1.81 damage per energy body slam, which at the time was one of the best attacks in the game. At 1.8 damage per energy with 35, and then ghost coverage as well, Lickitung was so bulky, it was so spammy that Lick seemed like it was a good attack. But would you run Lick on much else? Probably not. There are quite a few Pokemon that learn Lick, right? So if we look at Lick, and if we ignore your Licky or Lickitung, right? Gengar's only ever going to run Shadow Claw. Munchlax is actually shifting here, it's shifting to Tackle. Nothing else really, other than a couple of normal types, runs Lick, because Lick isn't particularly good. Similar to Water Gun. So I would run Dragon Breath if you've got Dragon Breath. If you can avoid Water Gun, if you can avoid Lick, generally I'd probably avoid. Rollout, for example, on Licky, far superior. Way better than Lick. So I'd run Rollout on Licky for sure. Aurora Beam Cress. Bobbert, I want you to look at the damage per energy of Aurora Beam. I think we'll see mostly fighting coverage more than fighters, similar to grass in the current meta. Wit Dog, that is interesting, and I would be interested to see how we see that. I think Malamar's obviously a very good Pokemon that will have access to fighting coverage. I'm interested to see which other non-fighters use it. Alejandro is exposed. Do I think next season will be more or less RPS than this season? So my general stance is that every meta will trend towards RPS as the meta is established and an anti-meta is found. I think that this meta is diverse and different enough that we will see such vastly different metas month on month that it will take a while before it settles towards RPS. By which point, hopefully it's December, and then we get the change to reduce that RPS by getting rid of stuff like Mandibuzz. So I think that this meta will be less RPS, personally, but I really want Metal Claw to be +2. I think that will make a massive difference, because +2 will allow Shadow Empoleon and Ferrothorn to be swinging into the meta and offer some really interesting core breaking potential against everything that we're seeing on this screen. Do I have a good website to see Pokemon movesets and damage numbers? Yeah, well, I mean, PvPoke is probably one of the best out there. So what I'm generally doing, right, is I will click up here and I'll go down to moves. Yeah, you can see where my cursor is up here. And then these are your fast attacks. And generally with your fast attacks, this DPT times EPT, ignore this. Don't look at this. This is really misleading. I don't care about this. It's not actually that helpful. Unless you really understand what you're looking for. And the reason is because Lock On is one of the best attacks in the game, but because its DPT is only 1, when you do DPT times EPT, Lock On is all the way down here. Makes no sense, right? DPT times EPT is not the best metric to measure a fast attack. Yes, all of these are very good, right? But because of things like Lock On, it's not entirely illustrative of exactly how it works. So your fast attacks are here, and your charge attacks are here. Charge attacks are a little bit easier. You can just filter by the damage per energy and it'll tell you how efficient they are. And this is generally correct as long as you take into account 2 things. First thing I want you to take into account is what is the effect. If you're debuffing yourself, then don't give as much weight to the damage per energy, because this is a 3-stage debuff. That's not particularly useful. The second thing is I want you to look at energy, right? And a 65 energy attack at 2.3 is worse than a 40 energy attack at 2.25, because you can reach way more of these. So Flying Press is better than Roar of Time. So you don't just look for DPE, you also need to relate it or equate it slightly to the energy. So if we scroll down to the more common attacks, 1.8 is generally a very efficient attack. But 1.8 on a 55 energy attack, you would say, yeah, that's reasonably efficient. 1.83 on a 60 energy? No. Now you're getting too high energy for this. And so for a 60 energy attack, you actually want to be looking in this realm of Mist Ball. Mist Ball is probably the lowest DPE 60 energy attack that I'd say, yeah, that's pretty efficient. And then the big thing about fast attacks and charge attacks is I have a look at the energy generation, and I look at this number here on energy generation. So for example, the key one at the moment that you might want to look at is Rollout. So Rollout generates 12 energy, 13 energy even. It is, I've lost it, there it is, Rollout, 13 energy. And then you try and work out what charged attacks are efficient with a 13 energy fast attack. So you do your mental maths, 13, 26, 39, 51, etc, etc. And then you work out what charged attacks you're running, and you add the charged attacks together. Okay, this is how I do it. Right, you don't need to do this, but if you're interested in how I do it, I add my charged attacks together. So, for example, with Licky Licky, I add up. I'm just going to go to Licky Licky. It's running Body Slam and Shadow Ball. Body Slam is 35 energy. Shadow Ball is 55 energy. You add them together, right? You can press show stats if you don't know. You press show stats, 35 energy, 55 energy. Add them together. What do they equal? They equal 90. And then you divide that number by the energy generation of Rollout. Annoyingly, doesn't tell you the number 13. So what you've got to do is you've got to multiply the turns by the energy per turn to get the exact energy. But if you know that rollout is 13, you just know it's 13. You then do 90 divided by 13. And you realize that 7 times 13 is 91, which means rollout is very efficient into a body slam plus a shadow ball. You do 3 rollouts into a body slam. It gives you 4 residual energy because 13 times 3 is 39. So 39 minus 35 is 4. And then you do 4 more rollouts. 4 times 13 is 52. 52 plus your residual 4 is 56. 56 is enough energy for shadow ball. So rollout plus body slam plus shadow ball together, very energy efficient, which I like, which you should like, because that is how you're getting the most out of these changes to the fast attacks and the charged attacks. And if you can use that line of thinking, it's not necessarily every Pokemon is going to subscribe to that level of efficiency, but generally speaking, if you can take advantage of efficiencies like that, you might start to find that you are that you've got slight advantages against your opponents that maybe don't think like that, is what I would say. What's next? Do I have a good web? No, that was what I just read. Counterpoint, it'd be funny. Do we know what buff Metal Claw got? No, we're waiting. I'm hoping it's +2. So it goes to 8 energy. Looking at the top picks, Grass looks strong, Thoughts on Serp / Venu. We've covered Venusaur already. My general position is I don't think Venusaur will be relevant. Superior, I think, will be more relevant than Venusaur, but still probably not meta. Metal Claw Registeel, probably not. No. How many hours in a day does Andrew play the game? Andrew plays all day, every day. Isn't this why Homeslice Henry said Sparkling Aria was no good on Primarina because it's too costly for its damage? Isn't Sparkling Aria just worse than Hydro Cannon anyway as well? So also that reason, I suppose. Yep, you've answered that already, Tiger Sony, thank you. Is this stream, will it be on YouTube? I think I'm already streaming this to YouTube, so you should be able to click onto my YouTube channel and it should just be there. So you should be able to watch it back at any point. And I do cover a lot in this. I'm admittedly not entirely coherent because I just answer whatever random question I'm seeing. So it's not like in order, but if you do want to go and watch it, it will be on YouTube. And maybe do you know what? Maybe after the actual move update drops, then I'll make a more dedicated YouTube video. There's no point doing it until we know Metal Claw, because the whole meta changes if Metal Claw is 8 energy versus 7 energy. You're a PvP noob first season trying to get to 1800s. Okay, Heartless Mosaic. Everything I said to you was way more complex than it needed to be for someone who's at 1800. So you don't need to worry about as much as what I'm saying there. You can maybe rely on content creators giving you a little bit more feedback on the types of teams and types of Pokemon to run. You don't need to worry so much about the theory behind how they get to that point just yet. If you're very, very noob, generally speaking, the first thing you need to learn is your types. If you know all of your types super effective, like your matchups for types, that's going to make a big difference. And a lot of the newest players that I see aren't 100% sure on them. And so I'm going to give you an example and you're going to tell me the answer in your head, right? You don't have to write it down, but in your head, I'm using a Crustle, I am a Bug Rock type. You are using a Machamp. You have access to fighting damage and to rock damage. What attack do you throw on me as the Crustle? So if you know that answer immediately because you know your typings, well done. If you're not sure and you're having to think about it, that's the kind of thing that you will see vast improvement if you learn your typings better. If you immediately know that the answer is that Rock is super effective against Bug and Rock is not resisted by Rock, so Rock is your super effective attack. Meanwhile, Fighting is super effective against Rock but resisted by Bug, so Fighting is neutral damage. If you know that straight away, that's the kind of thing that you can be pleased that you've got to that stage where you are smashing your typings. And then there's lots of stages after that. But if you don't know your typings yet, I'd say that is a good place to start putting your focus on, and then you can just copy teams that other people are doing and just make sure that you play with them to the best of your ability, right? You wonder if it'll nerf or buff. What do I do with Adobe? Lots of things, I guess. Check my Instagram, Alejandro. Axon suggested that a way to make RA useful would be to nerf Hydro Cannon as a way to nerf Gator. So earlier in the stream, my suggestion for Hydro Cannon would be to get the parameters of Blast Burn and the parameters of Hydro Cannon and just swap them around. Let the fire types have the fast nuke, let the water types go and have the higher DPE but the slower nuke. I think that is the best way to rebalance the starters at the moment, because right now we see Swampert, we've seen Swampert, we've seen Feraligatr, we've seen we might see Empoleon again, and all of the fire starters they find it a lot harder to get into the meta. Generally speaking, fire starters have worse offensive typing because they're often paired with like fighting, and fire and fighting often hit the same things, like steel. They both hit steel. So let's swap them around is what I would say. Lapras, Ice Shard. Okay, I would release Shockwave as a new attack, as a 35 energy electric attack, and I would give Lapras Ice Shard, Shockwave at 35 energy, Surf at 45 energy, and I think that is the best way to buff Lapras. What else? You only know Twitch chat typings. What's the best tips for building teams and reading opponents' teams? Okay, good question. Once we know all of the move parameters, right, it will take a couple of weeks for a rough template for are you talking about Show 6 or for GBL? GBL is a bit chaotic. It's hard with GBL because there are so many different Pokemon that can core break anything. So GBL is a little bit wild. I'm not a huge fan of GBL personally. I like Show 6. In Show 6, you're going to have a general template start to emerge as players realize what 6 roles they want their team to cover. And when you start to get that template, then you can use that as a foundation for how to build your team. And I'm going to use the example from last season. Last season, the template was Fighter, Anti-Fighter, Flyer. Oh, why does my camera do this? Flyer, Anti-Flyer, Steel, and then an Anti-Lantern, because Lantern was so prominent. And if you stuck to that general team building template, you could build a safe team. If you like sufficiently ticked off each of those roles, that is like a good foundation to be like, hey, my team is probably pretty safe. There are other things that you then consider as your step 2, step 3, step 4, but that is how I would have approached it last season if I was trying to help or coach someone. A new template will form now that fighting has mostly been nerfed and that ground damage has come in, and that Lantern is no longer here, right? You're now no longer looking for an anti-Lantern. Your final role is probably an anti-Clod. And so you're going to see a lot of Clod and anti-Clod Clodsire teams. But if Metal Claw is buffed, then Empoleon will be insane. Is there a good website to study those typings? I actually think that this is an area where the game needs to improve. I actually don't think that there are many good resources online that are very clear about Pokemon Go typing. I think you can look at a typing chart, right? So if you were to just Google Pokemon type chart, this is like an example of a type chart where you can say fire is resisted by fire. It's a little bit difficult because the majority of Pokemon that you're going to be up against will have dual types. So if you're using a fire attack, you need to see how good it is against, let's say, a Clodsire, which is poison and ground. You'd need to check both. Here you can see that they're both blank, so it's neutral. But if you're doing it against a Crustle, which we know is a bug rock type, then it's resisted by rock, super effective against bug, so you know it cancels out and then is neutral. So it does require a little bit of legwork, which is why I think that if we could get some kind of resource to make it easier to digest, that would be better for newer players, but that's a work in progress, I think. Grass, does it need the help? I don't know about that. Frenzy Plant's already insane. What do I think of top 6 usage for Baltimore in 2 weeks, J-Jan? Look, if Metal Claw and if we get Metal Claw and Empoleon, then obviously Empoleon. If we don't, then Clod, Mandy, Feraligatr, Malamar, Dunsparce, Galarian Weezing. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. Lantern would still be used because of Gator. I don't know. Water Gun Lantern is not great into Gator, especially when you can't even bait as effectively with Surf. Type effectiveness quizzes. Hey, quizzes are good. Quizzes are good. Me randomly asking you a question, that's good, right? If I say to you, you are a Drapion, right? You want to throw a Sludge Bomb into a Clodsire. What level of resistance are you facing from a Clodsire? You need to know straight away. Do you resist? Do you double resist? Do you triple resist? Those kinds of things. Or I'm a Drapion and I throw a Crunch into a Galarian Weezing. What type of effectiveness is that? Is it super effective? Is it resisted? Is it double resisted? You just got to know these things as fast as possible. The faster you know it, the more intuitive it becomes. Once it becomes intuitive, you no longer think about it. So people who ask me, do I count my optimal move timing? No. I don't even, like, I've played the game for long enough that I don't optimal move time by counting. Like, I know when it is. And if you can get to that stage where you know your typings like that, when you know your energy like that, when you know your optimal move timing like that, it makes the game so much easier. But like, it just does require time. Like it's a really fast-paced game. You don't have as much time to think. So it is one of those things where practice makes permanent, right? Not perfect. If you practice the wrong thing, you're just going to become very good at the wrong thing. But if you can start to practice the right things, then it'll show. You will improve so quickly. I very vividly remember playing GBL and being so stoked when I hit Veteran, because I'd never hit it before. I remember that so vividly. And I remember that the idea of hitting Legend was just like so far away for me. And then in a couple of years, I still really struggled to hit Veteran. I did finish at my highest elo for the season, so I'm proud of myself for that, but I feel team building and reading really hinders me. Yeah, GBL needs a rework. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if in a year's time or 2 years' time, GBL has completely changed, because it's just, I don't think it's a good format for people to improve. Would you run Crunch to fight back against Lantern? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. If Metal Claw is +2, do I think Gator usage falls off? Not falls off. Gator's still wicked strong. I just don't think it will be the meta that people think it would be right now. Perfect practice makes perfect? Yeah, I guess. Timing is hard with the way the game one-turn lags and frame drops. Yeah, JP, my views on this, I feel, will be self-explanatory. Yes. You remember when I was homeless and teamless, and you said I would stream on Twitch and made you follow? Yeah, I do remember that. I remember I was like, hey, I'm going to start streaming 2 years ago. And then I was like, wow, this is so much effort. Why would I do this? And now I'm like, wow, this is so much effort. Why wouldn't I do this? I get to talk about what I would talk about anyway, but this time more than 2 people are listening, which is great. It's great for you. Okay, so a couple of takeaways from the stream for anyone who's joined more recently. Well, if you want to improve at this game, and you have done the basics that include things like learning your typings, learning your energy and your counts, right? Because those are some of the key things. If you know those like the back of your hand, you'll see vast improvement very, very quickly, right? They're not easy. I'm not saying they're easy things to do by any means, right? They require time. They require real time, and you need to think about it and you need to commit to it. And you need to be ready to lose a lot of games. You will rarely see me really complain about losing a game, right? Or at least you'll rarely see me let myself get worked up about losing a game. It's not worth it, right? This is a game. Don't let yourself get worked up by it. You don't have the energy for that. Use your energy to count energy. So once you've got past that kind of stage, and I spend a disproportionate amount of time doing this, but you know that this is quite a big aspect of my life, right? So it makes sense for me. You got to find, it's a lifestyle game, but you got to find the balance that's sensible for you. But generally speaking, if you asked me any attack here, on fast moves or on charge moves, if you asked me about any of them, I would expect myself to know all of these numbers. Maybe not DPE, because that's not particularly relevant, but I'd expect myself to know it. You don't need to learn all of these, but you should learn every single attack that's relevant to the meta. So if I scroll down randomly and I say, how much energy is a Leaf Blade, and you don't know that it's 35, that's an area that you can improve immediately. If you know that it's 35, but you don't know that it's 70 damage, you don't need to know that it's 70 damage, but if you know that it's 70 damage and you know how efficient it is because you know it's 35-70, then that's a good way, that's your good next step, right? But if I said to you what's low sweep and you don't know it, that's okay, because no one uses low sweep. So you don't have to worry about that. So you have to identify what are the relevant attacks for the Pokemon that you're seeing in the meta. So after Baltimore, for example, go and have a look at the top 12 usage, go and have a look at all of the attacks that those Pokemon can learn, and make sure you know the energy, and make sure you know the rough damage per energy, so that you are aware of what is the most efficient attack to be throwing when you're using those Pokemon. And one example is Serperior. We've said this before on previous stream a long time ago, before I went to Hawaii. Serperior runs Frenzy Plant and Aerial Ace, but Frenzy Plant is so good an attack that you would still choose to throw Frenzy Plant even when Frenzy Plant is resisted, rather than throwing Aerial Ace. So even once you've learned what's super effective and not, if you can have a rough idea of how efficient being your damage per energy, which is on this screen in front of you, filtered here. If you can have a rough idea, like if you look at Frenzy Plant is, so it's a 45 energy attack for 100, so it's over 2 DPE, which makes it really strong, right? 45 energy for 100. It is the same strength as a Wild Charge, except this time it doesn't do a 2% defense debuff. Did you know that? Did you know straight away that Frenzy Plant is the same as a Wild Charge, but with no drawback? Other than its typing, it's got worse offensive typing, being a grass type. So Frenzy Plant is almost always, if you've got access to Frenzy Plant, it's almost always the attack you're going to throw. And Hydro Cannon's pretty similar. Hydro Cannon's not far off, it's 2 damage per energy. Blast Burn is also 2.2 damage per energy. All of these attacks are really, really strong. AG Bridle, I would focus on keeping your mind as clear as is comfortable for you. If you feel that trying to take on the challenge of learning all this information is going to stress you out, don't do it. This is a game. It is not worth stressing yourself out about this. Try and identify what you feel is proportionate for yourself. And if you can set yourself targets and achieve those targets, congratulations on achieving your targets for you. Some people, you don't want to learn it. Some people, you don't need to learn it, right? You don't have to look at one player that does some crazy things and say that that's the minimum I need to do to get good. Colin, 6, right? Best player in Europe until he lost to me in Worlds, just saying. No, he's the best player in Europe, right? On paper, last season, he got the most points in Europe. So on paper, you can argue that, right? He doesn't count energy in the same way that I count energy. We count energy very differently. There's no perfect way to do anything. What I can do is share the things that I do. If you like aspects of those, feel free to take them and help yourselves, right? If you don't like aspects of what I do and you don't think it's going to be helpful to you, if you feel that it's going to be stressful to you, just leave it. Just leave it, right? What I do is best for me, and that's not necessarily going to be the same for everyone. So definitely focus on what you feel is going to be best for you, right? You don't need to know this, right? If I asked Colin what Frenzy Plant damage is, I don't think he'd know. You don't need to know it. You should know. If I would recommend knowing the energy, because I think it will make life a little bit easier in the long term. But you don't need to know all of this. If you like to learn it, I'm just showing you where it is, where you can find these resources. The other key thing, that if you get to the stage that you want to think about creating teams for yourself, if you want to get a little bit more savvy with the way that efficiency works with particular Pokemon, the other thing that we also talked about was energy efficiency into charged attacks. And just by way of example, if you show your stats here, right? If you have again, this is annoying that it doesn't show it for you, right? 2-turn attack at 4.5 EPT means that this generates 9 energy. You should just memorize that. Memorize that Karate Chop gives you 9 energy if you can. So then you think, what multiples of 9 are relevant in charged attacks? You know that the cheapest charge attack is 35. Well, 9 times 4 is 36. Very energy efficient. 40? Not as much, but 5-4? Pretty good, still pretty good. 45 energy, that's 9 times 5. Very efficient. 50 energy, not so much. 55 energy, trick question, because 55 is 1 more than 54, which makes it seem like it's not energy efficient. But when you add it to 35, that gives you the 1 residual energy from 36, suddenly 35 plus 55 is very energy efficient. So Karate Chop is going to be OP. I'm hoping that they give Karate Chop to Electivire, because I would love for Electivire to become meta as well. But Shadow Machamp is a really good example where when you add the 35 energy from Cross Chop to the 55 energy from Stone Edge, you reach 90. 90 is divisible by 9, which means that that combination of charged attacks is very efficient for the fast attack you're using. For people who count attacks, right, that is 4 to the Cross Chop. After you've done a Cross Chop, that is only 6 to the Stone Edge. If, on the other hand, you were to do the Stone Edge first, it's 7 to the Stone Edge, but then 3 to the next Cross Chop. Think about how quick that is, right? That is quick. And these are efficient attacks. Stone Edge is is a really good attack, okay? Stone Edge is at 2.18 DPE. Wait. 120 damage? Stone Edge is not 120 damage. Am I tripping? Stone Edge is 100 damage. Why has it got 120 damage on there? Oh, okay. Doesn't matter. It's the shadow bonus, yeah. I was so confused. I saw 120 and I was like, Stone Edge is not 120 damage. Okay, where did my Machamp go? Okay. That's a little bit misleading, but yeah, okay. You were stuck at Ace, and then a YouTuber told you to start counting your moves, and now you're so close to Legend every season. See? There are lots of different ways to this, and this is partly why, right? This is partly why when someone says to me, "Oh, I don't have a high rank X Pokemon," that's why I'm not hitting Veteran, or that's why I'm not hitting Expert. If you if you think, what is your bottleneck, right? What is the key reason that's slowing you down at improving? It's not going to be your IV spread. It's not going to be your IV spread. Really won't be. Okay, I think at Liverpool, I ran an Annihilate that was 1487 CP because I just didn't have one that I wanted to use more than that one. And then obviously by the time you get to Worlds, I guess, yes, you want to use the best IV spread that you can get for what you need, but it's not the IV spread that's going to be the thorn in your shoe. You need to learn typings and you need to learn energy if you can. What is the best charged move based on damage and energy generation? Well, Incinerate is a 5 energy attack, does 20 damage and generates 20 energy, which means it's 14 damage per turn, which means it's 4 damage per turn and 4 energy per turn, but it is a 5-turn attack. Party Slashers, congratulations on hitting Legend. Awesome. Hopefully, we will see a big variety of teams in GBL next season, away from stuff like Grasshole, ideally. Mercurial Flare. How do I time moves correctly when the mons switch in? Say 2 versus 3. Okay, so let's say you're using a 2 energy attack and they're switching in and using a 3 energy attack. You have to basically, you're now 1 turn desynced, so you're basically having to do 1 extra attack than you normally would. But it gets a little bit tricky when you use an attack and then you counter swap in with a different energy. Like, it can get a little bit tricky, which is why I don't think anyone really talks about hard and fast rules when it comes to that, because you realize that there's a lot of desync, and it becomes a little bit tricky. So it's like, it's hard to tell you in a single sentence how it works. If you become, the more you practice it, the more you will see the animation, and the more that you will just clock when the correct thing is. And the reason I say that is because lots of people say throw on your 4th mud shot, for example. I'm never looking at my own fast attacks when I'm playing the game. I don't know how many fast attacks I've done. I'm only ever counting my opponent's energy. That's personally how I play. I don't count my own energy, I don't count my own fast attacks, because that's on my side of the screen anyway. I can see my energy bubbles. So I'm looking at when their charged attacks are coming through and timing based on that. And that's why it's a little bit harder for me to give you a very easy answer to that question. I'd have to kind of just show you during a battle. The rankings give you the best choices for Pokemon, but like, how do you pick 3? You don't pick the top 3, do you? Never. You never want to pick the top 3. What you want to do, actually, I'm gonna come to you first, Heartless, because I think it's a really good question. I want you to type in Go Battle Log to Google. Okay, you go on to Go Battle Log, and then in this top left corner, you can choose what league you want to play in, and you want to choose your rough elo. So if you're telling me you're roughly 1800, let's go with rank 21, 1700 plus, right? And this is going to say to me that usually there's a little bit less data for certain of the elo ratings, because there's more data generally for where the players that are likely to document teams will put in information. But here, this is saying that at 1700 elo, these are some of the teams that you're likely to see. These are the trending teams, right? And it gives you all of these stats and diagrams, and it's saying, hey look, Toxicroak's pretty popular, Deoxys Defense is pretty popular, Empoleon's pretty popular. And using this kind of information, you might be able to say, well, if I'm seeing lots of Toxicroak and Empoleon and Deoxys Defense and Victreebel, then I might try X Pokemon that beats many of these. And if you wanted to, you could just copy and paste Toxicroak, Empoleon, Deoxys, Victreebel, Whiscash, Goodra, Charjabug, Cherrim, Dragonite and Medicham into PvPoke Team Builder as your threats, and see what it recommends to you as the counter to those threats. You might have a little bit more information if you come up to Legend Dealer. Oh, actually, if you've got a login, sometimes this is saying that top teams at around Legend Elo are these kinds of teams. I'm not paying a huge amount of attention to the season's GBL because we're about to have a move update. But if you were to go further and even like subscribe, I think you can like generate an anti-meta team. It generates one for you, but I think you have to pay for that, so I wouldn't hugely recommend doing that depending on how seriously you play. But like, hey look, it's saying that Diggersby might be an anti-meta option, that Clefable might be an anti-lead option and things. So don't throw your money at this, but I just want to share these kinds of resources, right? Because this will give you an indication of what people are reporting they are seeing at these various elos, right? You count your own moves. I personally, I don't count my own moves. That's I count my opponent's energy. Both Ponyta are getting Wild Charge. Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly PvP relevant. I think that's the wrong one. PvP relevant Comday, but Shiny Ponyta looks cool, so enjoy. I think that. Where are we? Okay, at least it's a Stardust. It's a Stardust Comday. That's good. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be. I don't think this is going to be particularly PvP relevant, so don't worry about that. Reborn Phoenix. Remember that Body Slam has just been nerfed, which is a pretty hefty nerf for Galarian Rapidash. Oh, just past midnight and I didn't do my Duolingo. Why do you let me do this? I'm gonna get told off by the owl. Yeah, Bobber, I with 2 turn attacks from my opponent, I count their number of attacks. And with 3 turn attacks or more, I actually count in energy. Because 2 turn attacks are a little bit quick. And I know that, like, if I know that Fairy Wind is 9 energy, so if I'm like, oh, they've done 6, that I know immediately they're on 54 energy kind of thing. Whereas when I've got a little bit more time, like with Confusion, I'm like 12, 24, 36, 48. Then I'm minus 45, and I'm like 3, 15, 28, 41, 54, that kind of thing. That's how I do it. But if you don't want to be doing like mental maths as you're playing the game, that makes sense, right? Mental maths is pretty boring. So just find a way that works for you, that you're like, I'm pretty consistent when I do this method. And if you're finding it hard or you're finding it difficult, try a different method. Lots of people, like Colin, I use Colin as an example just because I spoke to him about it last week. He does not count energy. He counts the moves. So he's like 7 Psycho Cuts to a Moonblast, and then 6 to a Grass Knot, and then the third one is 5. Like he'll count like that, which is fine. It might mean that sometimes he's not as 100% sure because of the way that the residual energies roll over, but he's a good enough player that that's not his bottleneck. That's not, if he's losing, it's, you know, he'll still win despite not knowing those things. So there are loads of different ways you can do it. Yeah, just see what works for you. Right, my voice is starting to go because I've been sat here for a long time, for 4 hours now. So unless anyone has any burning last questions. Yeah, exactly, brother. Reborn, you can lose track. Any tips on practicing counting energy? Honestly, just play a couple of sets of GBL, especially when we're starting the new season and it doesn't really matter so much. Just see if you can try and count in energy. Try and count snarls in 13s. How good is your mental maths? If you don't back yourself in mental maths, don't worry about it. Don't try it. You know, there's no point punishing yourself. But if you're like, I'm pretty good at maths and I back myself, give it a go. See if you can learn. And after a while, you'll be counting Mandamar's energy like that, right? But lots of people don't do that, so don't worry about it. You don't have to do that. Just throw your move whenever. Timing doesn't matter. Sure. Maybe. Works for some. Useful to keep just a chart up? I don't know. What works for you? Find what works for you. No one that gives you advice is going to tell you the perfect way to do things for you. Listen to lots of different people. Listen to lots of streamers. Listen to lots of content creators. Pick and choose what works for you. That's what I would say. Right? A lot of the things that I do would not make sense for other people to do. And a lot of the things that other people do personally don't work as well for me. And we're different players as a result, and that's a good thing. So if you feel a chart is working for you, use a chart, but remember that if you're in a tournament, you're not going to have a chart. If you're happy learning it from it, and then you're like, I back myself to memorize and never need it again, sure. But if you become reliant on a chart while you play, you're not improving as a player, you're just improving how many things you're reading at once. Hopefully that helps. And I will share as much information. It didn't work out. Hey, you just gotta listen. You don't need to do what anyone says, but it's always good listening to what people have to say, right? So team, thanks very much. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll find someone to raid, and then I will aim to be back tomorrow, so that when we've got the move update and we know if Metal Claw is +2 energy or not, then we can start looking at how to build teams. And I'll share, like, I share pretty much everything. Like, I share most of my IV spreads on stream when I probably shouldn't. But I'd rather that those people that are willing and wanting to learn have access to information than me cheese my way into a win that isn't really going to change my life. Right, is there anyone that you want me to raid? Sergio, are you streaming? Heartless, so when you're on PV Poke like this, and you click Clodsire, you can scroll down and click Show Stats here, and you can get the stats there, or you can go to the main menu here and go to Moves, and you can filter fast moves and charge moves. There's also the option for Moveset Explorer. If you want to type in, hey, what Pokemon learns Poison Sting and Earthquake, you could do that, and it will show you that Clodsire and Smeargle are capable. Or you could do that same thing in the rankings by pressing at Poison Sting, ampersand, and symbol, at Earthquake. It'll tell you that Clodsire can learn those 2 attacks. But for energy, yes, you can press Show Stats, or you can go and scroll through and you can filter. Here. No worries, no worries. Hopefully that helps. Any other questions? I'm back in London now, so I'm going to try and stream as regularly as I can. As I say, I am moving house this weekend, which might throw my stream schedule off a little bit. But I'll try and do my move in stages, so that like I'll move like the bedroom and the living room out first, so that I can still stream, and then I'll try and move all of my stream stuff at once. So hopefully that works. Right, did anyone find me someone to raid? Is anyone else streaming at the moment? I'm actually not seeing anyone streaming Go that I follow. Oh, Marto is. Do you want to go into Marto's stream? He actually streams in Spanish though. How long has he been streaming for? Sergio, is Marto online? I think he's off. I think he's finished. There's no one on. Pogo Ash. Pogo, she's streaming. Oh my goodness, she's streaming. Oh, Pogo Ash 887? Who's that? It's a different Ash. Alright. Okay, we can do that then. Let's just go raid. I've never heard of him, so if he does anything bad, blame Lyle Jeffs. Lyle Jeffs 3. Blame him for anything that goes wrong in the rest of your lives. Team, thanks very much for joining. Hopefully some of that was helpful. If you've got any follow-up questions, feel free to ask. The VOD will be up on YouTube as well. If you want to go back, appreciate it's going to be long and messy to find specific bits. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your days, and I will see you tomorrow.